All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. This is my second Conspiracy Theory Thursday, and today we're going over the Large Hadron Collider. Um, so those who might find this video on YouTube, I've seen I got a few people that have found some of my videos on YouTube, which is awesome. If you're watching this right now, thank you for watching. This is a new Twitch channel that I just recently started. I've actually never done Twitch or YouTube, so I thought I'd jump into it. And yeah, I wanted to make a channel where I get to sit and spend a couple hours researching things that I think are cool, learning more about topics in the world that I think are awesome and fun and entertaining, and maybe one day eventually doing that with a group of people watching me live on Twitch and chatting, and so we can kind of talk about it as we're learning about it. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. And if you're interested, come check us out on Twitch. That's Cool Beans Hot Stuff. I stream every night, every weeknight at 7 p.m. And so on Thursdays, I'm imagine if you're clicking on this video, you're clicking on it because you're interested in conspiracy theories. You know, I mean, or like particle physics. If you're clicking on it because you're interested in particle physics, you know, I think this video will be enjoyable, but this is probably going to be the only video that I make on particle physics. That's not exactly my cup of tea, right? On Mondays, I do like mental health stuff. And then on Tuesdays, I do like scary stories. And then Wednesdays is like wildlife orientated stuff. Thursdays is my conspiracy theory Thursday. So we're not going to be talking about the Large Hadron Collider today to give you a rundown on particle physics. Although, as you can see on my screen, you will be getting a little bit of that. This is mostly for the conspiracy theory side of it. So for those of you who enjoy conspiracy theories out there, check out my live stream every Thursday for crazy shit going on in the world, all the conspiracy theories that are abound, and help we can research it together, see if it's real or not. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. We're going to be going over the Large Hadron Collider, what it is, what it does, what are particle physics. You need to know a tiny bit about that to understand what the fuck this thing is, right? I mean, a Large Hadron Collider could be anything. You know, if you're a layman like me, you don't know anything about particle physics, and a Large Hadron Collider, you know, I mean, it might as well be a new flavor of popsicle. It's what the fuck do those words mean, right? You know, so we're going to go over it a little bit so you understand exactly what it is that we're talking about here. And then we're going to deep dive into some of the juicy conspiracy theories surrounding this guy, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of various crazy things that people are saying about the Large Hadron Collider. I got a whole list of them for you. We're going to go through each claim, and we're not going to super deep dive into each claim. You know, I got about 2 hours that we're going to cover this, and it's a lot of material to cover. We might do a future stream, you know, if this video finds people on YouTube that end up enjoying it, and maybe commenting that they want to learn some more about these specific conspiracy theories, then maybe I'll pick and choose a couple of them and we'll deep dive into them. But for today, we're just going to go over the base, what the conspiracy theory is, what the claim is, some proof for the claim, and then what some of the critics are saying regarding the claim. And then if you watch my channel live, if you are watching it live right now, which, hello, cutie pie, hope that fried chicken is going good. If you are watching it live, you can always click on the right side of the screen. I got a little poll that pops up every Thursday when we're covering conspiracy theories, whether or not you think the conspiracy theory that we're discussing is real or not. So if you do find this at some point and you're watching it live, you can go ahead and pop over there and take the poll and give us your 2 cents on it. So anyways, that's my rundown. Let's go ahead and jump into this, right? Because we got a lot of stuff to cover. Starting with particle physics. The fun stuff, right? What you get paid the big bucks to understand. So what is particle physics, right? Well, particle physics is the study of fundamental subatomic particles, including both matter and antimatter, and the carrier particles of the fundamental interactions as described by quantum field theory. So I you understand that, right? Well, duh. Of course that's what it is, right? Everybody knows that. Particle physics is concerned with structure and forces at this level of existence and below. Fundamental particles possess properties such as electric charge, spin, mass, magnetism, and other complex characteristics, but are regarded as point-like. All right. All theories in particle physics involve quantum mechanics in which symmetry is of primary importance. See also electroweak theory, lepton, meson, quantum chromodynamics, and quark. Well, we're not going to see all those stuff. Essentially, the world is made up of atoms, right? The world is made up of, well, yeah, elements, and all of these elements are made up of atoms, teeny tiny little things, and those atoms are made up of, a nucleus, protons, neutrons, electrons, all that good stuff, right? Well, all those protons, neutrons, electrons, and and all that good stuff. I don't think it has a nucleus. Does an atom have a nucleus, or is that a cell? I think that's cells. That's biology. Completely different fucking subject. I didn't go to college for this, if you didn't realize, but it's got the protons, neutrons, electrons, all that stuff floating around in that little atom there. That's your atom. That's me pointing out your protons. And those protons and neutrons are made up of even tinier particles. And that's what subatomic particles are. That's hence the word subatomic. It is even smaller than an atom, right? So that's how that word breaks down. So yeah, that's what particle physics is. It's studying the physics of subatomic particles, the particles that make up all the different parts of an atom. So when it says particle physics is concerned with structure and forces at this level of existence and below, that level of existence is below an atom, subatomic, smaller than an atom. And there is particles that exist. They have seen them that that are smaller than an atom, that are smaller than a proton or a neutron inside of an atom. Very, very teeny tiny. That's what particle physics generally concerns itself with, okay, is the study of that. Now, I'm going to dive down here. We are not going to learn quantum field theory, all right? So I'm sorry to disappoint you. We will learn a little bit about the Higgs boson a little later. Right now, you just need to know what particle theory is, right? So we can kind of understand the next part of my presentation is, what are particle accelerators? Why do you need to know this? Well, that's what the Large Hadron Collider is. It's a particle accelerator. And what does it do? Well, I'm about to tell you. Particle accelerators produce and accelerate beams of charged particles, such as electrons, protons, and ions of atomic and subatomic size. They are used not only in fundamental research for an improved understanding of matter, but also in a plethora of socio-economic applications related to health, environmental monitoring, food quality, energy, and aerospace technology, and others. Okay, so how do they work? Particle accelerators can be linear, which is straight, or circular in shape, like the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, and have many different sizes. If you didn't know, the word large in the Large Hadron Collider means that it's a big one. They can be tens of kilometers long or fit in a small room, but all accelerators feature 4 principal components. And these are the principal components: a source, which produces the charged particles. That would be right on my screen. Then they have a composite device to add energy to the particles and speed them up by applying a static or an oscillating electrical field. That would be right here. Number 3, a sequence of metallic tubes in vacuum to allow the particles to move freely and without colliding with air molecules or dust, which can dissipate the beam. That would be right there. And then a system of electromagnets to steer and focus the beam particles or change their trajectories before being bombarded on a target sample. And that would be this little curve right here. So, you don't really need to know all of that, right? Oh, here's a cyclotron is what that's called. And there's, you got your 1, your 2, your 3s, and your 4s. But okay, let's move on to how are particle beams used? Well, in the health field, beams can be used to sterilize medical equipment and can produce radioisotopes required to synthesize radiopharmaceuticals for cancer diagnosis and therapy. Large accelerators are also used to destroy cancer cells, reveal the structure of proteins and viruses, and optimize vaccines and new drugs. How they do this, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know why a beam is used to sterilize medical equipment, but it is. Synthesize radiopharmaceutical chemicals. Okay. Oh, that's because it can produce radioisotopes. Sure, duh, I knew that. In the research field, a few accelerators, the largest ones, like the LHC, are used to make subnuclear particles collide at nearly the speed of light to advance our knowledge of the origins of the universe. Some of these accelerators are also used to produce neutrons. normally offered for diverse usage by nuclear research reactors. So yeah, this is essentially kind of replicating what they're saying here. How do we collide particles at the speed of light to advance the knowledge of the origins of our universe? Well, in less coded language, that's the Big Bang, right? That's what they're trying to discover is how do you make that Big Bang happen? That's the origin of the universe as we know it, right? Environmental field of study. Typically, proton beams can be used to detect trace chemical elements in the water, air, or soil. For example, chemicals in air samples are collected with special filters, which are studied with analytical techniques. The results reveal the concentration and composition of the different pollutants and provide a unique signature of the air quality. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's kind of crazy. So they can be used to detect trace chemical elements in air, water, and soil. Ah. I'm going to be muting periodically throughout the stream. I still got a tiny little throat thing. I've had a throat thing for 2 fucking weeks. You know, we don't have any LHCs in my house, so I can't just be myself and be good. So I'm fighting this off, and I'm almost through it. Maybe a couple more days, and I'll be back to the races. But for now, I'm going to have to mute you guys whenever I make like a nasty snot swallowing noise, all right? Industry. Beams can interact with the atoms of a target material to make the material, for example, more durable. Okay, well, that's pretty crazy. Wow. And then we don't need to dive deep into what the different types of particle accelerators are because we don't really care. We're more interested in just the LHC. So now you know what the LHC is. The LHC is a particle accelerator. And particle accelerators are used in not quantum, but are used in particle physics. What did I just do? Okay, yeah, sweet. So yeah, they are used in particle physics to study a whole plethora of different things, because of their ability to essentially manipulate particles. So because they can speed these particles around at the speed of light and split them and do all kinds of crazy things with them, they can do all that. Gives them the ability to do everything from sterilizing medical equipment, apparently, to testing the quality of a sample of air that you would put into the accelerator, which is kind of cool. That's interesting. So that's what a particle accelerator is. So now that you know what that is, the LHC is that, and that's what it's used for. Now you're all up to date on your particle physics, right? You're one of them smart guys, knows all about that stuff. We'll go ahead and watch a 2-minute video that I got here on this is a National Geographic video on what the LHC specifically is, right, and how it works. So let's go ahead and check that out.
Enter the Large Hadron Collider.
According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the Large Hadron Collider is the biggest machine on the planet.
I just realized I've been saying that wrong the whole time. The Large Hadron, not Hadron. Hadron Collider. Okay. I feel like mine is better, but whatever. We'll believe him, I guess.
This thing is huge. It's a 27-kilometer underground ring located at a CERN facility near Geneva, Switzerland.
The reason the Large Hadron Collider is so large is because it has one task: to destroy the smallest particles possible so we can better understand how they work.
The LHC is a really big particle accelerator. Basically, it's a bunch of magnets strung together that accelerate subatomic particles to near light speed, so we can literally smash them together and see what they break up into, so that we understand what the fundamental building blocks of those particles are.
The protons and electrons that the Large Hadron Collider work with are so tiny that the task of making them collide is akin to firing 2 needles 10 kilometers apart with such precision that they meet halfway. And how the Large Hadron Collider does this is incredible.
Yeah, I do find that hilariously ironic that you need to build such a massive machine to do such a tiny, precise job. That's kind of funny. I don't think they went over how big it is yet. We'll get over that in a minute.
The LHC needs a really high vacuum environment so the subatomic particles don't interact with matter. If the subatomic particles were allowed to interact with matter, they'd be annihilated and lost. So within the LHC ring, there's a tube that is kept at very high vacuum that the particles travel in. Subatomic particles can be accelerated in rings like the LHC or by linear accelerators. In a linear accelerator, we accelerate the particles in a line rather than around a ring. And linear accelerators really help us to get the particles up to speed before we inject them into a ring. The LHC has two linear accelerators, LINX3 and LINX4, which produce the particles and inject them into the large LHC ring.
Okay, there you go. So that's essentially how it works. It just takes this big ass machine. We're going to learn how big ass the machine is. And it uses it to make these tiny little particles, little teeny baby little things, and boom, make them hit each other and blow up and do all kinds of shit. And supposedly they learn a lot of things from that. So I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so you'll have to ask one of them. But it sounds a lot like fun. You know, it sounds pretty cool. And it is pretty crazy to see. I think this gives us a good idea of how actually big this beast is. So the Large Hadron Collider, okay, because we're saying this correctly now, is the most powerful particle accelerator ever built. The accelerator sits in a tunnel 100 meters underground at CERN. We'll get into what CERN is in a minute. The European Organization for Nuclear Research. Okay, well, I guess we don't have to get into it. On the Franco-Swiss border near Geneva, Switzerland. What is the LHC? The LHC is a particle accelerator that pushes protons or ions to the near speed of light. It consists of a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets with a number of accelerating structures that boost the energy of the particles along the way. So 27 kilometers. That's pretty big. That's a beast. For all of us Americans out here, we like to do things as differently from everyone else as we possibly can. So 27 kilometers, I believe that is almost 60 miles. If I did the math correct. If I didn't, then, well, you don't know. You probably won't, you probably don't know. Nine times out of 10, you probably won't, most people probably don't know. But yeah, around 60 kilometers, I think, if I did the math correct and not backwards. That's a pretty big ass ring of magnets, right? So there you have it. So why is it called the Large Hadron Collider? Well, large refers to its size, approximately 27 kilometers or 60 miles in circumference. Hadron, because it accelerates protons or ions, which belong to the group of particles called hadrons. And collider, because the particles form two beams traveling in opposite directions, which are made to collide at 4 points around the machine. And here is the workings of that. This very easy to read diagram right here, right? Super easy to understand. So I'll let you figure out what's going on there since I already got it, easy peasy stuff, right? Okay. The CERN Accelerator Complex is a succession of machines with increasingly higher energies. Each machine accelerates a beam of particles to a given energy before injecting the beam into the next machine in the chain. The next machine brings the beams to an even higher energy, and so on. The LHC is the last element of this chain, in which the beams reach their highest energies. So, to go back to this crazy thing right here, that's kind of what they were talking about with the LINAC 4, LINAC 3. These guys right here are supposed to feed the larger LHC with new particles that are up to speed. Inside the LHC, two particle beams travel at close to the speed of light before they are made to collide. The beams travel in opposite directions in separate beam pipes, two tubes kept at ultra-high vacuum. They are guided around the accelerator ring by a strong magnetic field maintained by superconducting electromagnets. Below a certain characteristic temperature, some materials enter a superconducting state and offer no resistance to the passage of electrical current. The electromagnets in the LHC are therefore chilled to negative 271 degrees Celsius, a temperature colder than outer space, to take advantage of this effect. The accelerator is connected to a vast distribution system of liquid helium, which cools the magnets as well as to other supply services. Okay, so what are the main goals of the LHC, right? So we know what particle physics are, right? We know what they're trying to do. They're studying the teeniest, tiniest little things that exist in the world, right? And then we know what particle accelerators do, what they're used for. They're made to do a lot of different things, but, mostly this particular particle accelerator is used to make these particles collide and see what happens. So, but what is the main goals? Why did they actually build the LHC? Well, the standard model of particle physics, a theory developed in the early 1970s that describes the fundamental particles and their interactions, has precisely predicted a wide variety of phenomena, so far successfully explained almost all experimental results in particle physics. But the standard model is incomplete. It leaves many questions open, which the LHC will help to answer. Now, we didn't jump into the standard model. We actually do have a page on that right up here. Standard model in physics. We're not going to dive too deep into that. We're just going to take their word for it that the standard model is pretty badass. It's been able to tell us predict a whole lot of what goes on in the world of particle physics, but it is not perfect. And so the LHC is there to help us understand more about particle physics. So it wants to understand what is the origin of mass. The standard model does not explain the origins of mass, nor why some particles are very heavy while others have no mass at all. However, theorist Robert Brout, Francois Englert, and Peter Higgs made a proposal that was to solve this problem. The Brout-Englert-Higgs mechanism gives a mass to particles when they interact with an invisible field, now called the Higgs field, which pervades the universe. Particles that interact intensely with the Higgs field are heavy, while those that have feeble interactions are light. In the late 1980s, physicians started the research of the Higgs boson, the particle associated with the Higgs field. We're going to get to that here in a second, but they're trying to discover evidence of supersymmetry. Ooh. What is that? The standard model does not offer a unified description of the fundamental forces, as it remains difficult to construct a theory of gravity similar to those for the other forces. What are these other forces? I don't know. I got lost. Supersymmetry, a theory that hypothesizes the existence of more massive partners of the standard particles we know, could facilitate the unification of fundamental forces. I didn't understand any of that. I'm not going to lie. What are dark matter and dark energy? They want to answer that question. The matter we know, and that makes up all the stars and galaxies, only accounts for 4% of the content of the universe. The search then is still open for particles or phenomena responsible for dark matter, 23%, and dark energy, the other 73%. Interesting. So why is there far more matter than antimatter in the universe? That's a good question. I was just going to ask that, Matter and antimatter must have been produced in the same amounts at the time of the Big Bang, but from what we have observed so far, our universe is made only of matter. And how does the quark-gluon plasma give rise to the particles that constitute the matter of the universe? I have a feeling I'm not going to understand this one either. For part of each year, the LHC provides collisions between lead ions, recreating conditions similar to those just after the Big Bang. When heavy ions collide at high energies, they form for an instant the quark-gluon plasma, a fireball of hot and dense matter that can be studied by the experiments. Okay, interesting. So that's the LHC. We have a lot of data here about the LHC that isn't really important to what we're talking about. If you are watching this and you're pretty excited about this is the kind of stuff that gets you going. Then you can go ahead and check out this website. This is just at CERN's. This is just the CERN website, www.home.cern.com. Gives you all the info you need to know about the LHC, all the different runs they've done, how much power it consumes, the main achievements, all the times they've turned it on. Now, what is CERN? We do want to answer that question. That is going to be a little relevant to what it is that we're talking about when it gets into the conspiracy theory part. So, CERN. Physicians and engineers at CERN use the world's largest and most complex scientific instruments to study the basic constituents of matter, fundamental particles. Subatomic particles are made to collide together at close to the speed of light. The process gives us clues about how the particles interact and provides insights into the fundamental laws of nature. We want to advance the boundaries of human knowledge by delving into the smallest building blocks of our universe. The instruments used at CERN are purpose-built particle accelerators and detectors. Accelerators boost beams of particles to high energies before the beams are made to collide with each other or with stationary targets. Detectors observe and record the results of these collisions. Founded in 1954, the CERN laboratory sits astride the Franco-Swiss border near Geneva. It is one of Europe's first joint ventures and now has 23 member states. What does CERN stand for? At an intergovernmental meeting of UNESCO in Paris, December 1951, the first resolution concerning the establishment of a European Council for Nuclear Research, in French, Conseil Europe. Okay, well, I can't speak French, but that gives us CERN, was adopted. So CERN essentially stands for the French translation of European Council for Nuclear Research. 2 months later, an agreement was signed establishing the Provisional Council. The acronym CERN was born. Today, our understanding of matter goes much deeper than the nucleus, and CERN's main area of research is particle physics. Because of this, the laboratory operated by CERN is often referred to as the European Laboratory of Particle Physics. So what is the LHC? We went over that. That's what CERN is. CERN is this group of people, group of scientists, the Provisional Council that was put together by various countries in Europe for the purpose of the studying particle physics using particle accelerators and detectors like the LHC. So that's what CERN is. Okay, so now you're up to speed, right? You know all it is you need to know. Now we can jump into some of these conspiracy theories, the juicy side of what we're going to be talking about. So, why conspiracy theorists are obsessed with CERN? There's a few different reasons. This gives us the background to CERN. We don't really need that. A powerful scientific laboratory like CERN is ripe for conspiracy theories, especially after it turned on the Large Hadron Collider. For a while before it hit the on button, people feared the Large Hadron Collider might destroy the Earth, bringing the largest machine in the world used to smash subatomic particles together, being the largest machine. But alas, it still has not. While this kind of cutting-edge science discoveries made at CERN are thrilling, a number of theorists around the world still worry about the possibility of disastrous effects of the research. Stuff they don't want you to know, hosts Matt Frederick and Ben Bolin compiled and observed all of the available data and theories they could find in this episode of the podcast, Should We Be Concerned? Oh, isn't that clever? They put concerned in the title. Get it? CERN, concerned. You can check out this podcast. This is just on howstuffworks.com. They have it sitting right here. I don't know how long the podcast is. I don't know if they will tell us. Give it a second.
Every bite of Easter is a celebration when you...
So it's an hour long. So if you want to listen to that, we're not going to dive too deep into that. Although it supposedly gives you a very good rundown of all the different theories regarding CERN. Yeah, so... we're going to, this gives us a bit of history on particle theory. We already went over that and how the CERN works, or the LHC works, and we already know that. We're all up to speed on that. So could the Large Hadron Collider and CERN also be at the heart of potentially planet-destroying experiments? Theories run rampant. When the collider was experiencing setbacks and delays in the early 2000s, some thought that perhaps a time traveler from the future was returning to the past to deliberately sabotage it in order to prevent some disaster. Yeah, I don't know, but that was a real one. Yeah, people thought that. This supposed time traveler tried everything, including a time-traveling bird with a baguette, but the collider was turned on in 2012 anyways. Other theories accuse CERN of causing earthquakes by sending plasma from Switzerland to Italy at high speeds, opening portals into hell. We're going to dive deep into that one, and shifting the world into an alternate timeline. We're going to look into that one too. In 2015, CERN even admitted its attempt to create tiny black holes so scientists can study antimatter. We're going to look into that too. CERN insists its research, including that of microscopic black holes, is perfectly safe, but some theorists believe it could cause a collapse of the entire universe. All right, so as you can see, a whole lot of conspiracy theories. We got a list of them right here. We're going to dive into the first good one, though, and that is parallel universes or alternate realities. I believe they're the same thing, more or less, right? So what are people saying about these parallel universes? Let's find out. There is actually a chance CERN will discover a parallel universe, something which conspiracy theorists seized on as evidence that the scientists were up to something evil. But the reality of parallel universes is somewhat different from what we see in science fiction, and there's no chance we will wake up to find Hitler won the war. Just as many parallel sheets of paper, which are two-dimensional objects, breadth and length, can exist in a third dimension, parallel universes can also exist in higher dimensions, CERN's employee Mir Fazel from the University of Waterloo said. I probably butchered your name, sorry guy. We predict that gravity can leak into extra dimensions, and if it does, then miniature black holes can be produced at the LHC. This cannot be tested, and so it is philosophy and not science. This is not what we mean by parallel universes. What we mean is real universes and extra dimensions. One of the many mind-scrambling ideas on the table is that the Big Bang never happened and the universe has always existed. Okay, so that's what these folks are saying about parallel universes. Other people have taken this concept of parallel universes and used it to mean an alternate reality. So, okay, story time. I'm going to pop over to... Here we go. You guys get a nice big view of my pretty face. This is my rant camera. I'm going to go on a rant right now. Okay, before we dive a little bit deeper into this. Story time. So, I knew a guy who wasn't especially smart. But he didn't know that. Like a lot of people who aren't particularly smart, they tend not to realize how not smart they really are, right? To be polite about all of this. So, he wasn't a particularly intelligent guy. And he one day was drunk, and which makes you even less intelligent in most circumstances. And he was arguing with another friend of mine. These two mutual friends of mine were arguing about the existence of God, right? As you do when you get drunk for some reason. They're arguing about religion, which is never a good idea amongst friends. I know people of all different religions, and I don't argue with a single one of them because it's just not worth it. So that's that in politics. Just leave it alone, but especially when everybody's drunk, right? Because shit can go from good, friendly conversation to heated in 0.5 seconds. Thankfully, this time it didn't. It's because one of my friends was a big boy, close to about 350 pounds and about 6'6" or so. He was a big guy. So, things probably wouldn't have gotten that far. But either way, big boy is drunk, and he's telling this friend of mine how, they have this, there has to be a God, right? There's more likely a God because science just discovered 32 alternate reality, 32 alternate dimensions. 32 alternate dimensions, he says. 32 different dimensions that other people live in. How crazy is that? So don't tell me that God doesn't exist in one of those dimensions, right? He has to. Whether you believe in God or not, that's not the point of this stream. The point is, this friend of mine was talking about shit he didn't understand. In his head, he heard the word alternate dimensions. And to him, that meant the science fiction terminology of alternate dimension. It meant that he actually thought there was like a separate universe, an alternate universe, right? Where there's a copy of him. There's Big Boy 2 sitting there drinking, except Big Boy 2, he went to college and actually learned about particle physics. Big Boy 1 in our universe, he did not. So he did not understand that the term alternate dimensions does not necessarily mean alternate realities. Not the same thing. It does when you're watching your favorite science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars show or what have you. But in science, it actually doesn't. But either way, I heard him say this. He makes this claim, and I am like, this is an outrageous claim. They just found 32 alternate dimensions. How have I not heard of this, right? I get on YouTube, I get on this news, okay? I watch the news occasionally, and all I'm hearing is about, the war here or, the price of eggs going up here or what have you. This happened a long time ago, by the way. This was about 10 years ago almost now. Wow, gosh, I'm so fucking old. But 10 years ago this happened. So at the time, we're just talking about the high price of tea in China or whatever, this, that, and the other thing. And so I'm like, well, how is this not all over the news? If they discovered 32 alternate dimensions, wouldn't that be like all over the fucking news, right? Like, wouldn't that be the number one thing everybody's talking about? Like, that was like 2016. Everybody was talking about the election. Like, fuck the election, bro. There's 32 different alternate realities. Why would we not be speaking of that? So I looked it up. And there is. They did just recently discover 32 alternate dimensions. What he was talking about was, I believe, M theory, which is an extension of string theory, which is a theory in particle physics. String theory is a theory for how you can measure these tiny subatomic particles. It turns out that the dimensions they're talking about are dimensions like length, width, height, 23 different dimensions, alternate dimensions you can use to measure a subatomic particle. That's what M theory is. And he didn't know that. So he, at some point, read about 32 alternate dimensions and thought that science had actually discovered 32 alternate realities where there's 32 alternate versions of himself, like Rick and Morty style. And he thought that was serious, man. And he used that argument to shut that kid up. And that kid was like, well, I guess I don't know about 32 alternate realities. If that's true, then yeah, okay, I guess God exists. Sure. You know, anyways, this is kind of what these people are saying is happening here, right? They're talking about parallel universes. I don't quite understand what they're saying about parallel universes in this particular. We're going to jump back. That's rant over. I don't exactly understand what Mr. Mir is saying here. Just as many parallel sheets of paper, which are two-dimensional objects, can exist in a third dimension, parallel universes can also exist in higher dimensions. So I don't entirely know what he means by that. My mind can't really comprehend exactly what that's saying. I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I'm, not all that much smarter than my friend. Okay, I'm not sitting here digging on big fella here who is getting drunk and talking about alternate realities, whatever. It's just a funny story. But, I'm not a particle physicist myself either. I don't know if you knew this, but in case you thought I was, I'm not, unfortunately. So I don't entirely know what he's talking about here either, but that is, I can get the gist that that's what they're talking about, is parallel, what they're talking about as parallel universes. What we mean is real universes and extra dimensions. So what they mean is, I guess, potentially extra dimensions for measuring our particular universe. I don't know. Either way, this scientific talk, the reason I went on my rant is to show you that it is real easy to misunderstand what these scientists are saying when they're talking about all this shit, right? Because it sounds, science fiction has made us think a whole nother world of stuff when we hear the terms parallel universes, alternate realities, yada, yada, yada. We think of a whole different thing than what scientists actually mean when they're saying these words, right? And it has led to, well, the idea that the LHC has created an alternate reality. And so here is the claim. Physicians assure us that we're not living in an alternate reality where Trump is president. This is 2007. After Trump won the election in 2006, give you the long story gist of it, and then we'll read the article. Yeah, a lot of people thought that the CERN had been turned on in 2012. There's another theory we'll get into here in a moment that I like a whole lot better. But when the CERN was turned on, when CERN turned the LHC on, it created an alternate reality. So that is the first conspiracy we're going to cover. There's a theory going around online that CERN experiments have caused the world to shift into an alternate reality where Donald Trump has become president. As most people would agree, this clearly can be labeled fake news. Or can it? I don't know. That sounds like something CNBC would say. Chill, microphone, chill. All right. CERN's research captures the imagination of lots of people, which is why CERN has been featured in a lot of science fiction books, even movies, around the world. A spokesperson for CERN told CNBC when asked about the Trump theory. These imaginative works, inspired by our scientific research, are works of fiction generated to capture the reader's or viewer's sense of wonder and should not be confused with actual scientific research. Trump theorists cite the Mandela effect, a phenomenon that occurs when a large group of people believe something happened even though evidence shows it isn't true. Some think more of these incidents have occurred since CERN was established and suggest that its particle physics experiments are causing the world to shift into parallel universes. People are recalling the original reality, which is why there is a divergent thought according to the believers. So, for those of you that don't know what the Mandela effect is, we're going to go ahead and hop into this now. The Mandela effect comes from when people thought Nelson Mandela had died in jail in the 1980s, that's why it's called the Mandela effect. A lot of people, for some reason, had sworn that Nelson Mandela had passed away when he was in prison in the 1980s. And that's not the case. It turns out he didn't. But it is a mass group delusion. Tons of people, a very large percentage of the population, thought that Nelson Mandela was dead until one day he just popped up and was like, hey, fuckers. And everybody was like, what? You're dead. And he was like, huh, what? Like, when did I die? And apparently it was a thing everybody thought. Another one is mistaking Berenstain Bears for its actual name, Berenstain Bears or Bernstein Bears. So mistaking the word Bernstein Bears, which it was never called Bernstein Bears. It was actually called Bernstein Bears. That one fucks a lot of people up too. Everybody has heard of the Bernstein Bears. Well, no, actually, you haven't, because that wasn't a thing. It was the Bernstein Bears. Or in 1990s, everybody thought there was a movie where comedian Sinbad played a genie. And there wasn't. There was no movie in 1990 where Sinbad played a genie. I believe there's another one. The Mandela effect, you can get into all different kinds of Mandela effects that have happened. I believe another one was Pikachu's tail. For some reason, a lot of people think that Pikachu, from Pokemon, obviously. I don't know if I caught that burp or not, but in any case, a lot of people think that Pikachu has a black tip on the end of his tail, and he doesn't. Pikachu does not. And that's a thing that a lot of people actually think. If you you talk to a lot of dedicated Pokemon fans, they'd say, oh yeah, Pikachu's got a black tip on his tail in the cartoon. And you say, no, he doesn't. And you show them a picture of the cartoon and he doesn't. And they're like, what? I could have sworn. And again, the thing is, it's not just your friend that fucked up. He got a little drunk one night and mistook things. And it was like, okay, sue me. This is a phenomenon that encompasses hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who had the exact same effects. The exact same memory that didn't actually happen. So these Mandela effects supposedly have been increasing since the CERN turned on the LHC in 2012. And this is the proof that a lot of the people who believe in this alternate reality, that is what they consider to be proof. Yeah, see, PewDiePie, yes, I always thought Pikachu had a black tip tail, right? See, I did too. No, that was one that somebody got me. We might have to, here, let's pop it up. Pikachu's tail. It's the second, oh, look at that. Second one that pops up, Pikachu's tail, Mandela effect. The Mandela effect regarding Pikachu's tail refers to the widespread false memory that Pikachu has a black tip tail. In reality, Pikachu's tail is yellow with a brown base and has never had a black tip. The phenomenon occurs, okay, and that goes over it again, but there's the picture of Pikachu without his black tail, right? And so here's what a lot of people thought it looked like, which I did too. A lot of people thought Pikachu had that black tail. But the picture went away. There it is. There's Pikachu in the cartoon, never had a black tip tail. Fucking crazy, right? So there's a lot of different Mandela effects out there. Here, let me just for the sake of shits and giggles, most common Mandela effects. Example, sure. Let's type that in. Okay. Kit Kat, 50 Mandela effects examples to test. 50 Mandela effect examples of things you think you remember correctly that you've actually got all wrong. Okay. So, Jif versus Jiffy. Peanut butter, not Skippy. Okay. Even though the name of your peanut butter doesn't quite matter when you're biting down on a delightful PB&J, some people swear that the peanut butter was actually named Jiffy and not just Jif. Speculators think that people might be getting Jiffy confused with the competing brand Skippy. I guess I don't know. I don't remember that. Oscar Mayer versus Oscar Mayer. Yeah, that one fucked me up too. You know the jingle. My bologna has a first name. It's O-C. Yeah. However, spelling out your bologna's second name, your bologna's, I keep saying bologna. Spelling out your bologna's second name is under scrutiny. Some people insist the second lyric of the famous jingle, Mayer, is spelled with an E instead of an A. So yeah, a lot of people think that it's Oscar Mayer with an E instead of Oscar Mayer with an A. It's actually Oscar Mayer. The famous HBO show isn't Sex and the City. The correct name of the show is Sex and the City. That one just kind of blows my mind too. I thought it was Sex and the City too. Huh. Legendary rock band Queen's song, We Are the Champions, is usually heard at every triumphant sports moment, but it ends a lot differently than most people can recall. Some people swore that singer Freddie Mercury belts out the lyrics of The World at the end. Yeah, we are the champions of the world. But at the end, but in reality, the original recording simply ends with no time for losers because we are the champions. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, he does say of the world, but I guess that's not the end of the recording. The Monopoly Man doesn't have a monocle. That one blew my mind too. I was like, bullshit. And yeah, it turns out he doesn't. No, Pikachu's tail. Leonardo DiCaprio's Oscar wins. Despite winning his first Oscar award in 2016 for his role in The Revenant, many people believe he won for his other films, Titanic and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Darth Vader doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. That's crazy. What is probably one of the greatest misremembered lines in Star Wars and cinematic history? The line is simply, no, I am your father. Wow, interesting. The Sinbad Genie movie doesn't exist. the Ford logo. Do you remember the curly wave at the end of the F in the Ford logo? If you don't, chances are you aren't alone. However, in reality, the little flare has been a part of the original logo since the 1990s. Yeah, and the F right there. That's crazy. I remember that. Life isn't always like a box of chocolates. Yeah, I just wanted to read far enough to see the Forrest Gump one, then we'll stop. We'll go back to the Large Hadron Collider, but Forrest Gump might have been one of Tom Hanks' most memorable roles with one of the most misremembered lines. It seems that the majority of film buffs remember Forrest Gump stating that his mama has always said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, turns out that he actually said, life was like a box of chocolates. Maybe Tom Hanks is actually a time traveler. Life was like a box of chocolates. Oh, okay. Oh, they have one on MASH. Hold on a minute. I got to read this one. My parents used to watch MASH every single night when I was a kid. Many MASH viewers remember the death of one of the main lovable characters, Colonel Walter Radar. Yeah, Radar, portrayed by actor Gary Berghoff. However, the character remained alive and well until his send-off episode in season 8 of the series. Yeah, I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I guess I didn't pay enough attention when my parents were in their MASH kick. All right. So anyways, yeah, that is the alternate reality theory, right? These Mandela effects have been tripling, quadrupling, more and more and more instances of Mandela effects are happening throughout the world. And this is proof that we are in alternate realities. We're just remembering what happened in the alternate reality. Pikachu's tail was black in the alternate reality that we used to be in until they turned the CERN on. They changed reality or swapped us into a new reality, and now Pikachu's tail is no longer black. So clearly we're in the worst reality for sure. Okay, in Trump's case, conspiracy theorists have cited evidence like his quote on terrorist attacks on Sweden and assertions that Muslims were cheering in the streets after 9/11, both events which they believe stem from memories of a parallel universe Trump used to reside in. A shift could also explain a rash of unprecedented outcomes in sports, like the Chicago Cubs winning their first World Series since 1908, Donald Trump's election to the presidency, despite most polls predicting Hillary Clinton was going to win. The idea has generated several joke threads and perhaps serious threads on internet message boards on Reddit. What's probably really happening is that people have lapses in memory, especially when they aren't paying close attention to details. Well, I mean, maybe, I guess, I don't know, if you just want to be cavalier, could be, could not be, it could be an alternate reality. I have heard that idea too, that there's crazy shit happening in this reality that people never expected would ever happen. Life tends to do that, though. Life tends to throw you some pretty crazy curveballs. In any case, CERN's research isn't focused on finding a way to travel to different dimensions. This goes over more that they're doing at the CERN, but that's the theory, right? Now, there's a second aspect to this theory, right? The first theory was they turned on the Large Hadron Collider and completely swapped us into a new reality or changed the reality we're a part of. In comes the weasel. This is 2016. A small mammal has sabotaged the world's most powerful scientific instrument. Can you guess what it is? Any takers? The LHC, a 17-mile superconducting machine designed to smash protons together at close to the speed of light, went offline overnight. Engineers investigating the mishap have found the charred remains of a furry creature near a gnawed-through power cable. Oh no, little guy. Look it. It's so cute. You don't want that poor guy getting fried alive, but that's what happened. We had electrical problems, and we were pretty sure this was caused by a small animal, says Arnaud Marcellet, head of press for CERN. The organization that runs the $7 billion particle collider in Switzerland. Although they had not conducted a thorough analysis of the remains, Marcellet says that they believe the creature was a weasel, probably. The shutdown comes as the LHC was preparing to collect new data on the Higgs boson, a fundamental particle it discovered in 2012. We'll get into the Higgs boson here in a minute. The Higgs is believed to endow other particles with mass and is considered to be a cornerstone of modern-day theory of particle physics. Okay. Yeah. These sorts of mishaps are not unheard of. Yeah. Oh, we are in the countryside, and of course we have wild animals everywhere. There have been previous incidents, including one in 2009, where a bird is believed to have dropped a baguette into critical electric systems. Oh, there's the time traveler that they talked about, right? We're not going to dive too deep. I don't think we dive actually at all into the time traveler conspiracy theory, just because I couldn't find anything on it. That might have been something that was just on Reddit message boards, and now those message boards are gone with the winds. They're somewhere in the they're long gone. I couldn't find them. Is all I'm trying to say. All right, give me a break. Okay. But yeah, so this did actually happen. I mean, the bird with the baguette also happened too. I mean, you can imagine that it might not have been a time traveler who taught the bird to drop the baguette, I think is the conspiracy theory there. But we did have a weasel that chewed through a power line, which gives us the weasel timeline. Can you guess what I'm getting at? Anybody guess what I'm getting at? In April 2016, a weasel chewed into one of the electrical transformers of the Large Hadron Collider, causing a short circuit and shutting the machine down. What the fake news won't tell you is that the weasel incident caused a rift throughout the multiverse. The walls that separated each reality haven't been right ever since. Some people say this is when we entered what they call the darkest timeline, the weasel timeline. In the weasel timeline, an alarming number of people seem to be divorced from reality. While it can be frustrating to encounter these people, try to remember that it's not their fault. They just belong to a different universe. So, yes, there is a belief out there that one of the first comment is, this passes for writing these days. Oh, the second one was the weasel, a Russian agent. Oh, that's funny. So yes, this is the second part of that belief, is that a weasel chewed through the power cable at the LHC, and in doing so, fucked us all over and threw us into a timeline where now Donald Trump is president, the Chicago Cubs won a World Series, and Pikachu's tail is no longer black, and Nelson Mandela is alive. So let's see what some critics have to say about this. This is a 6-minute video. I don't remember if I was going to go through the entire video or not, but we will, if we have to, we'll jump around. But for now, let's just take a listen. These are some critics. What some critics have to say about the alternate reality theory
and most basic of laws of physics. We can think about a nearly infinite variety of possibilities. This is the circumstance we see ourselves in particle physics and in cosmology and in string theory, things like that today, where the possibilities are nearly endless. And our goal is to figure out the one or the ones that accurately reflect our own universe. And it just so happens that because there are so many other varieties, our creativity, our imagination is unlimited as well. So the things that we create that go into the movies, that go into stories, that go into comic books, we can use the basis of the possibilities that are laid out by the laws of physics to think of things that are beyond the laws of physics and even give them a little veneer of authenticity, which always makes a story a little bit more fun if you can say it might be true.
So that was kind of what I was talking about, why people get the idea of an alternate dimension confused with the actual scientific definition of a dimension, like my friend did, right? Thought a dimension was like an alternate plane of reality, not what they're talking about when they say the word dimension. This is very common. This commonly happens because the writers do this. They take these scientific terms and they hear it, alternate dimension, and somewhere in their head it clicks, oh wow, like that could mean like a whole nother world. And they write that into a story. They take these crazy things that they are doing at places like the LHC and turn them into a story full of possibilities that are, crazy stuff for the sake of making a good story. But then people ingest that pop culture. And, not all of us go to particle physics school, and we don't know that a dimension, when people are talking about a parallel universe or something, there is such a thing, but it isn't what you think it is. So it's kind of saying the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great time. It's a great time to be a sci-fi writer. But sometimes we go a little, sometimes the imagination has run a little bit too far. And in terms of the Higgs boson, which has the unfortunate and inflammatory nickname of the God particle, which I now understand why, because it's, as you pass through the Higgs, you come into existence. So I understand the nickname now, but it is still an unfortunate nickname. And some of the hype surrounding the first use of the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah, we seem to not be able to sidestep the damn God particle. I was going to save that for the end of the stream, but everybody's just content on talking about it now. I'm not going to. I'm going to stay till the end of the stream because I don't actually entirely understand it. So I'm, I got a lot of web pages saved that I found and looked up, but I didn't read through every single one of them. I'm reading along. The whole point of the stream is to do the research now and read along with whoever's watching and have a conversation with whoever's in the room about it. That was a burp. So yeah, I haven't, looked too deep into what the God particle is, per se, just that there's conspiracy theories surrounding it, and a lot of people are nervous about them being able to having discovered it in 2012. But that's what they're referring to, the God particle. We'll cover that at the end of the stream.
Included the fear that the discovery of the Higgs would lead to a spontaneous black hole opening up and consuming CERN, Switzerland, and then the whole universe, which did not happen.
No, it didn't.
But now, given the increasing weirdness of the world, some are suggesting that the LHC knocked us into an alternate universe that is strange to us, which is a way better story than confronting the unsettling effects of worldwide income inequality and climate change. So, Charles, as a scientist and a communicator, do you have any thoughts or tips on sorting out real cause and effect relationships from just a well-told story?
Well, isn't that at the core of all science education, right? We have to convince people to use their tools of cognition and intuition in a way that leads them toward reality and truth and what to do about it, as opposed to some fantasy or alternative environment that we'd like to be in, right? It is hard. It's worth the effort, but it can be very challenging. It's very comforting to just sort of sit in a reality that somebody else has told you, like, oh yeah, that's cool. But how does it affect your daily life, right? So one of the tips that I would say is look at as many sources as you can. And what will happen, for example, let's say there's one interesting scientific result or some result that's announced in the universe. You're like, oh, I'm going to go and find 10 different people who have written about it, whether it's, this media outlet or that blog, or actually read the paper itself. So the person who made the discovery is telling.
Yeah. So to piggyback on what this guy is saying, he looks like a really smart guy. He looks smarter than me. I mean, he's got glasses. He's Asian. Usually you put those two things together and you're smarter than me. But I do want to throw my 2 cents in here. For me, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, is finding like the actual source of the particular claims. Like that's the most helpful if you're actually trying to discern the difference between what people are saying has happened in a particular incident and what actually did happen. For example, like a scientific discovery or a study. That's really when this happens a lot in political debates. I don't debate a whole lot of politics with anybody really, but you see it all the time. I do enjoy getting on Reddit, or I used to enjoy getting on Reddit. Reddit has turned into such a giant fucking cesspool. It's gotten better since the election. Leading up to the election, it was just like, oh my God, I couldn't go into a fucking movie Reddit. I couldn't go into I got a Reddit about, there was a Reddit I used to be in called like Fluent in Finance, and now I just call it Fluent in Communism because it just got overswept with tankies that just wanted to talk about communism every day instead of like, it was meant to be like personal finance. Years ago when they started the fucking Reddit, it was about personal finance. It was about like, hey, what bank account, what are the different kinds of bank accounts that exist and which one is right for you and this, and how do you get a higher interest rate and this and that and the other thing, and that was what I was interested in. And then it turned into just a bunch of people bitching and moaning at each other about whether communism or capitalism is better, this, that, or the other thing. And it just turned into a whole political mess. And for a while there, everything was like that, man. You'd go into the fucking Pokemon Go subreddit and people would just be posting political memes about, lightly touching on Pokemon, and it'd be like, oh my God, fuck, man. Like, I just want to fucking read about Pokemon, not your goddamn politics. I don't give a flying fuck, And so, unfortunately, Reddit it still isn't the best. It's better than it was leading up to the election, but it still isn't super good. It's still filled to the brim with people who are just obnoxiously spamming politics in every single fucking thread that they possibly can, every subreddit that they can. I swear to God, the porn subreddits are filled to the brim with people having like debates about fucking capitalism now. It's crazy. But whenever you get into these political debates, if you are the kind of person that enjoys those political debates, good for you. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't think like it's a bad thing to discuss politics with people. I just, for the most part, I tend not to. If I do, I tend to be much less what's the word, aggressive with my own politics, more just kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool that you believe that, even if I'm like, yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't go out of my way to be like, ah, you fucking idiot, look how fucking stupid you are, and your politics, you suck. You know, I try to understand where people are coming from for the most part. But I will say that when it comes into when people start talking politics, a lot of people like to start bringing up studies. They like to say, well, you know, this study concurs this, and that study says that, and this study says that. You know, that's all great and well, you know, but don't ever believe any motherfucker on Reddit. Don't believe any motherfucker on YouTube. You know, don't believe any motherfucker on Twitch. You know, look, it doesn't matter how handsome and muscular he is, how nice his beard is. You know, don't just take motherfuckers' words for it just because they say shit. You know, doesn't matter how smart they look, right? You should go find the study and read the study yourself and read the conclusion of your study. Because there has been numerous times where I've read about a study that was done. You know, I got a couple big examples I could go into, but I don't want to dive into my rant camera right now. I have some other things I want to get through in the stream, so I don't want to dive into a rant that's so completely off topic from what we're talking about, right? But I have absolutely, you know, read about a study that was conducted and what the conclusion was, and then went and looked at the study because I couldn't believe that that was the conclusion of the study. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that that's actually real. And then I read the study and was like, it's not. Like, these people either misread what the study actually found, or in some cases they're taking it grossly out of context, what was actually found, you know. It's very common to read an article where it says, you know, this is 6 times more potent than that, you know, or this is 6 times more than that. I guess the example I can think of is there was a study that found men are 6 times more likely to leave their wives if they have a chronic illness than women are to leave their husbands. 6 times more likely, which sounds like a lot. And you read that article, you're like, oh, fuck, wow, that's intense, dude. 6 times. If you actually read the study, they're not 6 times more likely to leave you if you have a chronic illness. They're 6 times more likely to leave you if you have cancer, but not other. Men and women leave each other at the same rate if they have every other chronic illness that this particular study, including heart disease, lung disease, strokes, heart attacks, a whole variety of different diseases. The only category of chronic illness where anybody left anybody else left them in the middle of being chronically ill was cancer, and the study was only conducted in people over the age of 45, and the difference was women leave their husbands when they have chronic cancer 1% of the time. Men leave their wives when they have cancer 6% of the time. Okay. So it is still 6 times, like men are 6 times more likely to leave women when they have chronic cancer, some sort of cancer that they're going to die from. But the reality is it's only 6% of men who do that. You would think that the more important aspect of the study is, you guys, 94% of men and 99% of women stay with their husbands and or their wives when they have chronic cancer. And when it came to every other illness, every other illness was not only comparable, but they were below about 2%. Roughly 2%, only 2% of the population actually leaves their spouse when they have a chronic illness. Which makes sense, because why would you leave somebody who's about to fucking die? They're about to die, dude. You know, you're gonna, you know, if you say the word, you know, most people, I would assume, love their spouse, you know, and aren't gonna leave them anyways. They want to be with them in those last few moments. But let's say that you really don't want to be with your spouse who's gonna die. They're gonna die. You're gonna be rid of them here very soon. Okay, so why would you go leave them? Yeah, that makes way much more sense, you know. But this is a thing I heard so many people tell. Oh my God, men are more likely to leave women, 6 times more likely. And it's like, yeah, 6% of men actually leave their wives when they have cancer, chronic cancer. Okay, cancer they're gonna die from. 94% of men don't. So it's just crazy how people took that study, turned it into something that it actually wasn't. And the study is written about in articles that, yeah, they're trying to scare women with the idea that men will leave you if you're about ready to die. And the real result of that study was, you guys, like, over 90 some percent of people stay with them. Men and women stay with their spouse up until the moment of death, which is exciting. That's good to hear. Like that should be a reason for us to look at each other and say, wow, we're doing pretty fucking good. But no, not what it was used for. So I didn't hit my rant camera, but I ended up ranting anyways. Either way, I think that is a poignant story for why you should just focus on the source, right? Find the actual study, read it for yourself and see what it's actually saying. You don't have to read the methodology. You don't have to understand the methodology. You do if you want to know it's a good study. If you want to be able to tell if a study is good, then yeah, you should probably understand the methodology of different studies and, understand how to control for various variables in a study. If you don't, like, I don't understand a lot of that, then, it's much more difficult for you to tell if the study was conducted appropriately and effectively, but you can at least find the study and read the results. So that's like what this smart fella right here is saying. Okay, my rant is over. Continue with the video. He was giving you tips for how to tell reality from a good story. That's where we're at before I jumped in.
Telling the story, and compare all of those things. Come up with the thing that seems to or a likeliness, right? Something that's actually real and believable based on the knowledge that you have. That's sort of the first thing that I would do, and actually evaluate, right? So one of the things that's really important is that you find as many sources as possible to look at. Don't just listen to one authority. If I say something cool and in the next half hour you think back to this episode, if half an hour from now you think back to the show and you think, that sounded weird to me, maybe it was wrong, go and find out. Look up 10 different sources. It could be from the news, it can be from reading the paper itself, it could be reading a book, and see if all those things made sense, or if indeed I made a mistake, which is very possible, right? Another thing that's very important for us to keep in mind as we're trying to separate real from unreal is to recognize that we are fallible, that we have the humility to be wrong, and say, I thought this was the case, but now I see new evidence, whether it's from my laboratory or from other people telling me stuff or my own observations, and I realize that I was wrong. In science, we give credit to people who were wrong too. Edwin Hubble, for example, who discovered the expansion rate of the universe, he got the rate way wrong, but we still call it the Hubble law, or the Hubble-Lemaitre law, because he got the concept right. But we all said, yeah, you didn't get the number right, but you got the concept right because you tried to find it using the right way. Mm. And then finally, I would say to people, if you're trying to distinguish between real and not real, is to learn about what we know already. If you have enough background to sort of get the basics of what we're quite certain is a common truth, then when you're getting unusual things, you can then realize that it is an unusual claim. And as Carl Sagan said, and Bill Nye also, on his TV show, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. If you recognize that a claim is extraordinary based on what you have, then you can start thinking about it in the context that allows us all to recognize whether or not it is 100% true or somewhat true, has a kernel of truth, or is just made up because it's a good story.
Okay, so that was actually a good little speech, man. Bravo to that guy. Golf clap for smart guy there. I really like that. About halfway through that video, I realized that wasn't critics of the Large Hadron Collider. They brought it up, the alternate reality theory, and he didn't really actually address why the alternate reality theory isn't true, which kind of suspicious, right? I don't know, just saying, just throwing it out there. But he did give a really good speech on why you should probably, like, tactics for picking out false information or just ways to look into the things that are people saying. I thought it was a very poignant speech, so I thought I'd go ahead and continue playing it. But he didn't give any specific criticisms towards the alternate reality that I was hoping, right? So far, the best, honest to goodness criticism that we got is from Mr. Mir Fazel here, who has just simply stated that, hey, we are talking about parallel universes, yes. But y'all are getting that shit wrong. And they did kind of touch on that a little bit in the video. Sorry, man, I'm burping up a storm here. They did touch on that a little bit in the video where they said, like, yeah, you know, like, people take these scientific terms and these scientific ideas and they expand on them for the sake of making really cool scientific stories, but it's not real. And that's kind of what they're saying here with this Mir Fazal guy. I'm sorry, from University of Waterloo. We'll call him Mr. Waterloo since I keep butchering his name. Might as well give him a nickname. Mr. Waterloo there, as he says, you know, we are talking about parallel universes at the LHC, but it's not what you think when we say parallel universe. So, I don't know. Do you believe him? Is Mr. Waterloo telling the truth, or is he full of shit? I don't know. Got to look into it a little more. That might be something that we'll look into on a later date. Deep dive into that specific claim. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the next claim that everybody talks about when they talk about the LHC, which is black holes. All right. So conspiracy theorists feared that when the Large Hadron Collider switched on, it would produce an enormous black hole, sucking us all into it. The lady in the video kind of touched on that, right? That hasn't happened, obviously, and nor has the LHC produced any of the microscopic black holes that many expected, according to the University of Alabama researchers. But it still could produce tiny black holes, which could give scientists a new way to investigate gravity and prove the existence of extra dimensions, the scientists believe. The University of Alabama's Shakoy Howe and Benjamin Harms and the University of Mississippi's Marco Gavaglia believe that so far the LHC has not produced any black holes. They believe, but do they know? I don't know. The researchers believe that they have ruled out black holes with 95% certainty by comparing simulations of black hole formation with real data from the LHC experiments. The researchers write that it's still possible the LHC could produce microscopic black holes. So, black holes in a lab. Could particle colliders bring a sci-fi apocalypse? I don't know. Let's check it out. It may sound like sci-fi, but in the humongous underground rings of the world's most powerful particle accelerators, such as the famous LHC at CERN, scientists push the known limits of what we know about the universe. In arenas like the LHC, subatomic particles crash into each other at almost the speed of light, and it's no exaggeration to say these high-speed collisions recreate the conditions with a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. Okay, we already know all that. Yet more and more scientists fear a speculative yet nightmarish scenario: the creation of micro black holes, hypothetically capable of swallowing our planet and then some. So that's the claim, is that the LHC is capable of this. Back here at Yahoo, Miss Alabama and Mr. Mississippi say, well, no, it shouldn't be able to. We're pretty positive it can't. Maybe. We're like 95% certain. All right, 95%, not 100%. It's 5% less, in fact. Let's look into it. First, an explanation of these tiny dead stars. While micro black holes might sound cute, their theoretical existence, as implied by scientific theoretical physics models, propounds that little Earth swallowers would form upon the collision of particles slamming together with enough energy. Of course, these tiny cosmic tears would be much teenier than those encountered in deep space. Given their puny size, the phenomenon would evaporate almost instantly upon arrival, at least according to the theories, particularly a process dubbed Hawking radiation. This process is named, no spoiler alert here, after the legendary physicist Stephen Hawking, who is also the author of the concept. His theory postulates that because these black holes emit radiation and forfeit mass so much faster than they can gain it, their rapid disappearance is highly likely. But what if he's wrong? If Hawkins calmed us down about micro black holes with a theory of radiation expenditure and mass loss, why are other scientists concerned? Their unease is due to the unlikely prospect of two particles colliding, creating a miniature dead star, then disobeying Hawkins' theory, which, untested in real life, remains a theory. Simply put, experts are fearful that micro black holes, once on the scene, won't evaporate, and that's not all. The collisions are no small thing. Stepping back, it's worth considering how each collision in particle collider is an unprecedented event. These collisions plunge us into the unknown and necessarily test the limit of our understanding of physics and of reality itself. Merely because the standard model of particle physics, a model constantly evolving, guesstimates these little dark chasms will probably evaporate and pose no great threat, that doesn't mean that they will. Nor does this prediction prohibit the possibility of deviations from the model governing micro black holes. It doesn't prevent novel, unexpected physics phenomena challenging current knowledge and assumptions. So basically, this has a little bit more meat to it, this particular claim, when you compare it to like the alternate reality, right? So far, the alternate reality proponents, they got the Mandela effect and they got a weasel. That's what they got as far as proof goes. But at least from what we've seen, right? There could be more out there that I didn't stumble upon. Might cover it at a later date. These guys have a genuine logic behind what they're saying. They're saying, yeah, look, theoretically, these tiny black holes that the CERN says it can potentially produce. We read that on the CERN website. It says it on their website. They say it on. They even said it on a previous webpage that we found, that even the CERN has said, yeah, we should theoretically be able to create miniature black holes. The theory is, yeah, the black holes will dissipate super fast and it won't be no thing. It's no big deal, man. Chill. But, is that true? No. It's not a fact anyways. You can't prove it as true. It is theoretically true. Theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work, but that means it's never been tested. What the CERN is actually doing, which I do find it a little disconcerting, or disconcerting or concerning, one or the other, those are two different words, that on the CERN website, when it goes over the LHC, it doesn't really tell you how novel what they're doing is. They go over it much more here. Every single time, I'm going to say it again, it's worth considering how each collision in a particle collider is an unprecedented event. These collisions plunge us into unknown and necessarily test the limits of our understanding of physics and of reality itself. So these particles that they're shooting through, every time they turn that particle accelerator on and these particles collide, it's an unprecedented event. Whatever specific particles are colliding at these specific speeds, time, with whatever if they're colliding the particles into something else, right? Which they said that they do that, right? It's unprecedented. It's never been done before. And they're doing it to potentially prove, right? Like, so if they do end up making a miniature black hole at CERN, at the LHC, and it does evaporate, then they have tested Stephen Hawking's theory, and they will prove it true, which would be a big deal for science. It would be a big deal for particle physics. They could say, no, this is in fact true. Stephen Hawking was correct in his mathematics, the way that he broke it down. Yeah, it's true. And that's would be good for them to know. But it's not true yet. It's not a fact yet. They haven't tested it yet. So if they test it and it turns out to not be true, well, what the fuck happens? The black hole is just there. It's just a tiny black hole. And what do black holes do? They suck shit in. They suck in matter, right? Well, So this article here kind of is where the bulk of all of these conspiracy theories come from. A previous article we read kind of spelled it out for us that, hey, this is a crazy machine and there's a lot of scientific mumbo jumbo. People are hearing terms like parallel universes and their minds are going crazy. And this is where the conspiracies are coming from. Another part of this is that they are in fact doing things that have never been done. And that is what makes people worried. Up until this point, CNBC and a lot of other places have kind of wrote this off as, oh, you're all just a bunch of fucking idiots and you don't understand what they're doing. And that's why you think that there's these conspiracy theories. That's not really the case. A lot of people do understand what they're doing. And when you understand what they're doing is unprecedented, meaning it's never been done before, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's an awesome thing. Like they said, it's necessary for testing the limits of our understanding. You got to do things that you've never done before, right? That's how you grow as a person. Think on an individual level. You got to go out and do things you've never done before. That's how you learn about things you don't know about, right? So it's not a bad thing they're doing that. But that is the reality that freaks a lot of people out, is that this has never been done before, and there is consequences to doing things that have never been done before. They can be good consequences. They can be bad ones. As they say here, science is full of the unpredictable. The point being, physics and science are overrun with instances of deviations from models and novel phenomena, of predictions proving novel phenomena of predictions proving inaccurate. That's empiricism. That's the scientific method. It's simply what science consists of as a discipline. So not to inspire nightmares, but the theoretical consensus is that if a micro black hole stuck around longer than expected, or if it interacted with the matter in any way other than the one anticipated, such an instantation could hungrily gulp up matter, starting with us. The micro hole would grow bigger. Thus, once a staple of science fiction, the scenario of a micro black hole now comprises a genuine concern that scientists are seriously discuss, particularly regarding safety assessments of collider experiments. However, some still say it's safe. Thankfully, to address these fears, the scientific community launched itself into rigorous safety studies. CERN famously declared micro black holes nothing to worry about prior to operating the LHC. Plus, cosmic rays, basically nature's own version of super high energy particles, often smack into Earth. These rays contain much more energy than anything cooked up in a collider, and so far, none of these cosmic rays have birthed a little baby black hole. But that doesn't make them any less terrifying or nor theoretically impossible. That is good to know. See, that's good proof right there that, hey, you know, cosmic rays do a similar thing all the time and they don't open black holes. Okay, fair enough. That's good to know. But that is the theory, right? That is the theory. Let's move on a little forward to angelsanddemons.web.cern. The science behind the story. Does CERN create black holes? The creation of black holes at the LHC is very unlikely. However, some theories suggest that the formation of tiny quantum black holes may be possible. The observation of such an event would be thrilling in terms of our understanding of the universe. It would also be perfectly safe. So again, now we're going to dive into what we've already talked about, right? There's actually two different types of black holes. They're saying black holes form in space when certain stars, much larger than our sun, collapse on themselves at the end of their lives. They concentrate a very large amount of matter in a very small space. They are so dense that the gravity they exert is such that not even light can travel out of them. Speculations about black holes at the LHC refer to particles produced in the collisions of pairs of protons. These are microscopic or quantum black holes. Scientists are not at all sure that quantum black holes even exist. So we're talking about two different things again, right? Like parallel universes. Yeah. Nature's experiment. The physical part of the LHC experiments, colliding particles, happens in nature all the time. We know, for example, that the Earth is constantly bombarded by cosmic rays. Oh, here's the rays again. When cosmic rays hit the atmosphere, particles are colliding with one another in much the same way as in the collisions planned at the LHC. Just as we know that the Earth is safe under the natural bombardment of cosmic rays, we know that recreating these collisions poses no threat to the Earth. Nature's collisions also reach much higher energies than those at the LHC. All right, so this sounds pretty legit. Yeah. So what if collisions at the LHC produced a black hole? The creation of a quantum black hole at the LHC would be very surprising, but very exciting indeed. It would allow physicians to learn about nature's most elusive force, gravity. Remember, particle collisions happen all the time in nature, and we're all still here. If you would like to read up more on the safety of LHC, here's more information. So what would be the significance of a creation of a black hole at the LHC? The creation of a black hole at the LHC would confirm theories that our universe is not four-dimensional, 3 spaces plus 1 time dimension. I did not catch that burp, sorry. I was interested in the reading. I believe the 3 space dimension, right, would be length, width, height. That's what they mean by the 3 spaces plus 1 time dimension. So those are the 4 dimensions we exist in: width, space, height, and time. But I don't know if that's true, you know. So if you're watching this on YouTube and that's not true, go ahead and correct me in the comments. But our world indeed hosts other dimensions. Aha, see, there's that alternate dimensions, right? It would be quite a spectacular philosophical outcome. In the same way that the theory of relativity or of quantum mechanics revolutionized our way of thinking, discovering the existence of extra dimensions would be a major new milestone in our understanding of the universe. Pretty interesting. Yeah, that would be kind of cool, right? And let's see, what is this article here? Colliding particles can make black holes. Simulations do not prove that the LHC will produce them, however. So these people are saying, yeah, it can happen, but the LHC probably isn't going to do that. So you've heard the controversy. Particle physics predict the world's new highest energy atom smasher, the LHC near Geneva, Switzerland, might create tiny black holes, which they say would be a fantastic discovery. Some doomsayers fear that these black holes might gobble up the Earth. Physicians say that's impossible and have petitioned the United Nations to stop the $5.5 billion LHC. That's not, physicians have not said that. Physicians are not petitioning the United Nations. The doomsayers are. Curiously, though, nobody had ever shown that the prevailing theory of gravity, Einstein's theory of general relativity, actually predicts that a black hole can be made this way. Now, a computer model shows conclusively for the first time that a particle collision can make a black hole. So it can be done, actually. So, you know, all that stuff about cosmic rays hitting the Earth, it's never done it before. Well, It still can. I would have been surprised if it had come out the other way, says Joseph Lycan, a physicist at the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory in Batavia, Illinois. But it is important to have the people who know how black holes form look at this in detail. The key to forming a black hole is cramming enough mass or energy into a small enough volume, as happens when a massive star collapses. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, mass and energy warp time and space, or space-time, to create the effect we perceive as gravity. If a large enough mass or energy is crammed into a small enough space, that warping becomes so severe that nothing, not even light, can escape. The object thus becomes a black hole, and two particles can make a minuscule black hole in just this way if they collide with an energy above a fundamental limit called the Planck energy. Or so physicists have assumed. Researchers have based that prediction on the so-called hoop conjecture, a rule of thumb that indicates how much an object of a given mass has to be compressed to make a black hole, says Matthew Choptuik of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. A calculation from the 1970s also suggested a particle collision could make a black hole, Chopnik notes, but it modeled the particles themselves as black holes and thus may have been skewed to produce the desired result. Now Choptuik and Franz Pretorius of Princeton University have simulated such collisions, including all the extremely complex mathematical details from general relativity. For simplicity and to make the simulations generic, they modeled the two particles as hypothetical objects known as boson stars, which are similar to models that describe stars as spheres of fluid. Using hundreds of computers, Choptuik and Pretorius calculated Interesting. There's a scientist named Pretorius in a really good horror movie called From Beyond. Anyways, Choptuik and Pretorius calculated the gravitational interactions between the colliding particles and found that a black hole does form if the two particles collide with a total energy of about 1/3 of the Planck energy, slightly lower than the energy predicted by the hoop conjecture, as they report in a paper in the press at Physical Review Letters. All right, so there you have it. So does this mean that the LHC will make black holes? Not necessarily, Choptuik says. The Planck energy is a quintillion times higher than the LHC's maximum. So the only way the LHC might make black holes is if, instead of being three-dimensional, space actually has more dimensions that are curled into little loops too small to be detected, except in high-energy particle acceleration. Predicted by certain theories, those extra dimensions might effectively lower the Planck energy by a huge factor. I would be extremely surprised if there were a positive detection of black hole formation at the accelerator, Choptuik says. Physicians say that such a black hole would harmlessly decay into ordinary particles. So there you have it. Yes, it is possible for two particles to collide and make a black hole. Cosmic rays be damned. But it's unlikely that they'll do it at the LHC because this requires a lot more, what did they call it? A lot more energy than what the LHC can create. So there you have it. Those are scientists speaking about the black holes. Okay. Do you believe them? What do you think about it? Out of those two theories, which one do you think is the most logical of them, right? Like, which one do you think is probably the more likely to be true? Is it more true that they can create black holes and they'll suck us all in? Or is it more true that a weasel bit through a power cable and now we're all living in a alternate dimension? Either way, I'm going to go ahead and let you stew on that point. I need to go take a pee break. We only got about 30 minutes left in the stream, and I wanted to go over another very interesting conspiracy regarding the LHC, and that is opening portals to hell. And then after that, we'll talk about the God particle and why that's so controversy. And so, yeah, I think we got plenty of time to dive into that. But in the moment, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break so I can throw up all these web pages, gargle some Listerine because I still got the throat thing. Yeah, y'all enjoy this Be Right Back screen, and I will be right back. All right. I think we're back. Testing. Yep. We are officially back. Okay. I had to go try some of my cutie pies. She just made fried chicken, and ooh, it's so good. She could do that professionally. She could. Her fried chicken's amazing. Okay. So, we stopped off at I think this is the last big conspiracy I wanted to cover. There's a couple other ones in there that they did mention, right? They mentioned the time traveler, but I didn't think I still don't think I would have enough time to throw that into this particular stream. There was another one there too, the earthquakes. That's it. That was the other conspiracy theory. The earthquakes regarding sending plasma to Switzerland or something. I don't know. But yeah, there was supposedly some earthquakes that they were going to cause too. But I wanted to focus on this for the remainder of my stream. We're going to take a look at all the proof they have that CERN is actually a satanic group of people that are trying to open a portal to hell. That's a conspiracy theory. And I shouldn't do it. God, I really shouldn't do it, but I'm going to eat some candy while we're going over this because it's just sitting there staring me in the face. It's like, eat me. So I'm going to do it. Oh, listen. Okay, well, that piece of candy's gone. All right. So, let's go ahead and talk about the God of Destruction. All right. So, one part of conspiracy theories is actually true. Of thus conspiracy theory. Hold on. Wait a second. Who stirs up the rumors? Okay. Here we go. At CERN headquarters, a symbol of Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction, dancing the cosmic dance of death and destruction can be clearly seen at the CERN facility. Is this symbol a declaration of CERN's ultimate intention to bring on a new age of destruction to this planet? One part of the conspiracy theory is actually true. There generally is a statue of Shiva at CERN, portrayed online as a god of destruction. That's that statue right now. But the statue, a gift from the Indian government, is one of many on display in CERN's facility and is not meant to evoke destruction at all. CERN explains, in the Hindu religion, this form of the dancing Lord Shiva is known as the Nataraj and symbolizes Shakti, or life force. As a plaque along the statue explains, the belief is that Lord Shiva danced the universe into existence, motivates it, and will eventually extinguish it. Carl Sagan drew the metaphor between the cosmic dance of the Nataraj and the modern study of the cosmic dance of subatomic particles. Okay, so that's what they say this statue is here for. But yes, they do have a statue of Shiva, and Shiva is the god of destruction. That is true. But this statue gave rise to this conspiracy theory right here. Does CERN seek to open the gates of hell, and what role does Hindu god Shiva play in science? May 28th, Facebook user Sovereign State published a video voiced in Russian, and according to the video description, the CERN Research Center is connected to mystics away from the public eye and plans to open the gates of hell parallel to the establishment of the New World Order. In the video, the topic of discussion in the European Council for Nuclear Research, that's the CERN's collider, which CERN will use to reach the depth of the Earth and open up the new dimension. Video also mentions that Shiva, Hindu god of destruction, represents a token of CERN, whereas the logo of the Research Council depicts 3 sixes. Yeah, let's see if we can get a picture of that. Okay, claim about planning to open the gates of hell with the Large Hadron Collider is false. All right. Shoot, I thought this one had pictures in it. One of them has pictures of the 666s in the CERN logo, which is pretty hard not to notice. I will give them that for sure. Oh, you know what? Is this it right here? I thought, yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. Video is unavailable. Yeah, I was going to say, I looked for this video by Sovereign State, but I couldn't find it. So the LHC, yada, 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 already goes over what it is. Standard model explains this, that, and the other thing. Yes, we already know. Scientists seek to know how the universe is, well, that, and that. Okay, finally, we get into the actual video. The claim. And for the record, this guy isn't the only one making the claim. I didn't just pick a random claim that a random dude threw up on the internet, because there's a lot of those. This is a claim that's been made by a lot of different people, right? That they want to create a gateway to hell. This guy just happened to produce some quote unquote evidence that was interesting. So I thought I'd throw it up, and it gives kind of a general rundown of what this conspiracy theory is trying to say. So the video disseminated by the sovereign state mentions that the Large Hadron Collider would start large-scale study in September 2005, and thus CERN would open gates of hell by that time. In reality, the Large Hadron Collider run to increase the energy and amount of collisions in the June to December 2015 study, collecting new data on various particles in the depths of the Earth, which scientists have used in the study of fundamental physics. So, they say it is false. They are not opening a gateway to hell. Let's see. Oh, here it goes. Okay. So to the question, will CERN open a door to another dimension? The official answer from CERN is no. If the experience lead to LHC discovering the existence of certain particles, it will enable scientists to better study the Big Bang Theory on the origins of the universe. However, it doesn't mean that CERN seeks to connect to a mystical dimension. So what about the Shiva god? In order to confirm that by seeking to connect to mystics, CERN scientists plan to open the gates of hell and destroy the world, the author of the video mentions that the third god in the Hindu triumvirate, Shiva, is a token of CERN, which, according to religious studies, aims to destroy and recreate the world. The video compares the Shiva statue in the courtyard of the CERN to the shape of the collider. Oh, that's kind of interesting. In reality, God Shiva isn't a CERN symbol, and it presents a gift from the Indian government. India became one of the associate member states of the CERN in the 1960s. The Indian government sent the Shiva statue to CERN to celebrate this exact occasion. The statue depicts Shiva dancing this particular dance, which represents life cycles. So what does the CERN logo depict? Ah, here we go. So can we pop open this picture, make you bigger? Is that what this button does? Okay, well, oh, that's like a camera thing. All right. I'm still getting used to PC. But you can see here in this image, this is the CERN's logo right here. And when you dissect it out, it looks like 6 sixes intertwined with each other. The video disseminated on the Georgian Social Network mentions that the CERN logo represents altered 666 and hides this number in it. In reality, this conspiracy theory claim to the CERN logo has been circulating for years. The current logo of the CERN was created in 1968. After the decision had been made to change the CERN logo, opening the call for new logos, the current design was chosen from the 114 possible versions. In reality, forms in the logo represent simplified versions of particle accelerators. Okay, so this is the actual CERN logo, or the old CERN logo. This is the new CERN logo. And they're saying, well, in reality, it represents a simplified version of a particle accelerator. Okay, that's fair, I guess. Yeah, I guess it kind of does. See, there's these little legs right here. So you can see a 6 right there, 6 right there, or a 6 right here. Maybe, but you still got extra legs in there somewhere, right? So it doesn't completely match up with 666. So what about the author of this video? The video disseminated by the sovereign state can be found online since 2015 and features Pastor Jim Staley, who in his speech mentions the CERN Collider study planned in 2015 and calls it the occurrence of this year. Therefore, the video was shot in 2015. Staley is the head of the religious union Passion for Truth. In 2015, he was found guilty of defrauding $3.3 million from elderly investors and was sentenced to prison. Ooh, he was released from jail on June 28, 2022. Ooh, geesh. So that same year, he was found defrauding people. Well, that's a bummer. For him. And the people who were defrauded. That's a bummer, okay? False claims on the New World Order conspiracy theory have been circulating for years. New World Order conspiracy theory mentioned by the sovereign state originated in the first half of the 20th century. It was initially a political term that was established after World War I. Read more on the New World... Oh, that's about the new article. Okay. So... these are some of the claims with a little bit of debunking thrown in with the claims. We have the goddess Shiva, right? And then we have the 666 in the logo. Okay. CERN themselves say, no, we're not opening a portal to hell. And you should just believe them, right? Or should you? I don't know. What would our smart Asian friend earlier say? He would say you should read multiple sources and go to the source themselves, which I guess CERN is the source themselves. So technically, yeah, maybe he would believe him, you know. I don't know. What do you think? Anyways, we're going to continue on with this particular conspiracy theory. The Large Hadron Collider is opening a gateway into hell, another Christian blogger claims. So this is another guy that has claimed this. Okay. Scientists at the Large Hadron Collider just observed light spectrum of antimatter for the first time, and its main goal is to open a gateway into hell, according to internet maniacs. In fact, the scientists are actually building the kingdom of the Antichrist, and soon he'll step through to rule our planet, according to blogger Christian Truther. Christian Truther's site says, antimatter is the opposite of matter. It isn't physical, it's spiritual, and it's all around us. It's also quite elusive and chaotic. As the machines are able to trap and contain chaotic antimatter, they are able to study it, bringing them one closer to manifesting it physically. They see themselves as God on earth, and they think that their actions are replicated by a God in heaven. CERN is building the kingdom of the Antichrist, hell on earth. Oh, get out of my face. It's all preposterous rubbish, of course, based on misreading press releases and deliberately misunderstanding what scientists are saying. It's part of a long tradition of fear of CERN, which believers claim has a logo mirroring the form of the Indian god of destruction, Shiva. Clyde Lewis wrote on the Ground Zero website, is it just a coincidence that CERN is short for the horn god Cernunnos? Cernunnos? Oh. See, that's a new one. Is it also a coincidence that CERN has to go deep underground to do their god harnessing experiments? Cernunnos was the god of the underworld. Cernunnos. Let's read about Cernunnos. Well, we're not going to read about him, but I do want to see what he looks like. Cernunnos. There's Cernunnos. He's a dude with antlers. A Celtic god. So you can see that they're kind of, in order to make this claim, we can get out of that. In order to make this claim, they're combining religions, right? Cernunnos is a Celtic god. Shiva is an Indian god or a Hindu god, I believe. So we're kind of combining religions here to make these connections. But still, anyways, it seems that Christian conspiracy theorists haven't forgotten the infernal machine for finding the God particle. Many of the claims about CERN opening cosmic gateways come from religious conspiracy theorists. In September 2015, conspiracy theorists widely predicted that the Large Hadron Collider would be involved in the end of the world, either by summoning an asteroid or the Antichrist himself. An asteroid, that's a new one. We haven't heard that one. Far from seeking to kill us all, the scientists at CERN hoped that their discoveries from the tunnels could actually change the world. Okay, 100 years ago, first particle, today, yada, 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 building these machines, yada, yada, yada. So they don't give us any reason why. See, I hate articles like this. This is Rob Waugh, you need to do a better job at your job. Get a new job, Rob. So, fucking Rob here just basically wrote an article saying, oh, these people with these claims are all a bunch of cocksuckers. Fuck them. That's essentially what his article's saying. It isn't anything better than that. Yeah, that's what it is. Is all these people are douches. Screw them. This is their dumb claims. Ha ha ha. It's wrong. And he provides no proof. Rob, do your goddamn job. You call yourself a journalist, be a fucking journalist. Provide us with proof, you son of a bitch. So, but those are claims. I in general wanted to run through this article mostly so we could see what other people are saying. It isn't just sovereign state, but a lot of people over the internet are connecting a bunch of different various dots concerning CERN and the LHC. And those dots, according to them, are saying, well, they might actually be trying to get us to hell. And Rob says no. But that's all Rob says. He just says, no, in the snobbiest voice he can imagine. Rob, go fuck yourself. Next time, write an article with some evidence to what you're saying. You know, and it isn't necessarily, personally don't really imagine that they're trying to, like, bring hell to earth, right? I don't know why they would do that. But it is one of those things where it's just irritating when a person who calls themselves a journalist does nothing of any journalistic value. Instead, they're just like, here's the claim and this is why they're idiots. And they don't actually give you a reason why they're wrong. They just say, they're a bunch of dumbasses. And it's like, okay, Rob, take a chill pill. Go take a tonic, go relax. Okay, now here's another part of this Gateway to Hell. This is a human sacrifice at CERN. It is now known as the mock human sacrifice at CERN, but yes, a fake ritual killing filmed in a courtyard at CERN, the Geneva Particle Physics Research Complex, has prompted an investigation. A spokeswoman suggested users of the facility had let their humor go too far and warned of the potential for misunderstanding about the scientific nature of our research. So, yeah, what the scientists at CERN actually did, according to... So, here's the thing. The video came out. This was, does it say, I think it was 2015. There it was. It was in 2015 or 2016, excuse me. A video popped up. This video that we're about to watch from CERN. Let's watch it. Let's just watch the video. People in robes circling God Shiva, the Shiva statue. A young girl is in front of him now, kneeling. Already none of this looks good. It seems like this is a person the person who's watching it is trying to hide. Like they don't know they're being filmed. The young girl is laying down in front of the statue and were stabbed with a sword by one of the people in a black robe. Okay, so that video circulated online, and what everybody at the CERN said was, hey, it was just a prank, bro. We just fucking pranked you guys. You're all talking about us being like demon worshippers, so we just made a prank video. Haha. And it did ignite a investigation. As far as I'm aware, as far as I could find, the investigation concluded that there was no actual human sacrifice that happened, and it was in fact just a joke at CERN. So they say. That's a really bad, I would say that was a really dumb idea to do a joke video while everybody's joking. Well, there's so many people who are making up all these conspiracies. You know, I mean, it's pretty humorous to throw it on top and say, fuck it, let's just let them run with it. But it's a bad idea, you know, and let's just say, okay, for an example, this is the reason why it's a bad idea. Here's why it's a bad idea. Okay, it's not that you can't poke the bear, because it's funny to poke the bear, all right, until the bear gets up and bites your face off. But until then, it's pretty funny. But here's the thing. If there was a person who actually took a video of a legitimate human sacrifice that happened at the CERN, and then that video went online, what do you think would be the most logical response? It would be to say, it was a joke. That's it. It was just a big joke. Nothing else. So the reality is nowadays you have a lot of people who saw the video and they know that an investigation happens. They know that an investigation concluded that nobody had actually been killed there. And they still say, fuck you, it actually happened. They're just a bunch of goddamn liars lying about this video, claiming that they made a stupid joke, when in reality they got caught red-handed in the act. There's more videos. This isn't the first time. This is a Twitter post from back in the day. CERN is where science meets magic and meets religion meets Satanism. You would think an elite-owned state-of-the-art science facility would worship statues of atoms or dance around strands of DNA. Nope, they worship Shiva and Baphomet, which is a satanic god of transgender. Okay, well, that's kind of out there. I don't think Baphomet is the god of transgender. I don't think there is a god of transgender, to be honest. Oh, that's funny. Baphomet. We gotta read this, though. Read this from the horse's mouth. I mean, I know Baphomet is like, I believe it's the yeah, it's a man and a woman mix, so that's probably why they're saying that. Is a figure incorporated across occult and Western esoteric traditions. The Knights Templar were accused of heresy for worshipping Baphomet as a demonic idol. Baphomet subsequently resurfaced during 19th century speculation and debate regarding the suppression of the Templars, with various occult and mystical traditions claiming Baphomet as a symbol of balance and synthesis, originating in teachings of the Gnostics, yada yada yada, yada yada yada, the Sabbath goat, da, da, da. Okay, both human and animal, both masculine and feminine, combined with metaphysical unity. Levi's intention was to symbolize this concept of balance, with Baphomet representing the goal of perfect social order. So yeah, it's got muscles like a man, boobs like a girl, and it's got the goat head and all the other things. That was an 1856 depiction of the Sabbatic goat. That's used for Baphomet, I guess. Hold on one second. Got heartburn. I'm just falling to pieces, man. Sore throat. Heartburn. While I'm chewing this, I'm going to read. Yeah, so I'm not saying anything about Baphomet being a god of transgenderism. What did it say? Was it god of transgenders? Let's go back to that. Baphomet, the Satanist god of transgender. I think they just kind of threw that in there because it's a guy's body with boobs on it. So, so that gives you some idea of the source we're looking at. But anyways, so yes, this is a video, again, that came out of the CERN. That's the video. So, here is the context, okay, from, what do they call us? Community Notes. Community Notes is amazing. So, actually, this is from the opening ceremony of the Gotthard Base Tunnel in the Swiss Alps, the world's longest railway tunnel. It had nothing to do with CERN, which is over 200 kilometers away in Geneva. So, no, they say this did not, in fact. And, ooh, look at this. Look at that. Actual fucking journalism. People posting quotes. Let's see if these quotes. The oddest moments of the opening ceremony. Switzerland Tunnel. Listen, Xfinity, get the fuck out my face. Okay, from the World Cup to the Olympics, it is not a significant event if you don't have an unusual opening ceremony to go with it. The Gotthard Base Tunnel, the longest and deepest in the world, was inaugurated Wednesday. This article contains partial nudity. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so... Oh, there it is, right there. There's the pictures of everybody doing their... At one point, there were lots of people rolling around in white underwear. Indeed. Oh, Mr. Goatman, here he is. The ibex that is native to the Alps played a prominent part in the ceremony. What is on Twitter? Okay, what is going on there? I don't know if I really want to know what exactly is happening there. We're just going to move along. Okay, so... There you go, an article giving you... See, this is much better than Rob, right? Fucking Rob. This, you know, we got a community notes, a random-ass person that put this here that gives us actual proof of, no, this video here is not real. Okay, there we go. We should be back online here. Yep, okay. We're back to going. Okay, sorry about that. Something happened with my OBS. It just randomly disconnected. So, okay, moving on. Anyways, so yeah, here's this crazy video somebody threw up. Was like, wow, look at this fucking crazy motherfuckers at CERN. And turns out, no, it's actually from this Gotthard Base Tunnel in the Swiss Alps is what it actually was, right? So, that's good to know. But yeah, this just goes to show, this is how many videos have been circulating about CERN or claims about CERN. We have this video, and then we had the sacrifice video. Okay. Old video wrongly linked to CERN to push satanic conspiracy theory. This is a fact check. Oh, I don't know if this is a fact checked. Yeah, so this is another fact check on that video we just watched. Oh, that's a bummer. I was kind of hoping this would be a fact check on the sacrifice video. This ended up not being that. Okay, well, still, it was fact checked by these folks too at Reuters. I don't know how to properly pronounce their website. Anyway, so there's a couple pieces of quote unquote evidence for satanic beliefs and things like that. They have the god Shiva that's at the CERN, their big statue. You have the 666 and the CERN's logo. You have the video that some CERN employees, supposedly, allegedly, CERN employees put out there of them sacrificing somebody, and then the video of a bunch of people acting all loopy and crazy in an opening ceremony for Gotham Tunnel. That was wrongly attributed to the CERN. So, and then, yeah, CERN, I guess somebody shortened it to Cernonos, or short for the god Cernonos, who was supposedly not a good guy. So, conspiracy theories are wrong. CERN LHC is not a portal to hell. Well, maybe Jackie here does a better job than fucking Rob did. Am I right? Okay. Oh, okay. Whew. I thought for a second that I was in French. I was like, well, it turns out Jackie's French, so we'll never know. But, okay, the CERN, translated from French as European Organization for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN, is the world's largest particle physics laboratory. The scientists there insist it is not the portal to hell. CERN operates the LHC, yes, we know this, and on July 5th, there was a restart of the LHC. It studies high-energy collisions with stable beams, the intensity of the beams before delivering collisions to the LHC experiments. Okay, it has been off since 2018. The Institute spent more than 3 years on maintenance and upgrades. Absolutely nothing. Jackie Allen did absolutely nothing. Live from CERN. Join us for the first collision. Again, this is the same stuff, man. This is what I'm talking about. USA Herald. USA Herald. What the fuck are you doing over here? Jackie, I'm disappointed in you. I was betting on you to do better than that fucker Rob, and all you did is just say, no, they're wrong. Okay, so that concludes our research, I guess, into the portals to hell aspect of the LHC. If this is something that would be enjoyable to learn more about, then, you know, if you're watching this video on YouTube, I was just on Twitch. I don't know if anybody was watching. Cutie Pie, you're probably still watching, but I didn't see if anybody else was. If this is something that, so, you know, this video is probably going to find people on YouTube. If that is something you would like to see another deep dive into, or a deeper dive into, then I can absolutely facilitate that. I would love to do a 2-hour stream that dives deeper into the alternate reality aspects of the CERN and of the conspiracy theories regarding CERN. And I would also like to do another deep dive into this hell, too. This idea of them opening a portal to hell. Because I don't think we got a lot in the way of evidence, but it is interesting. It's very interesting. It's, you know, that logo does look a lot like 3 6s. I'm just saying. And it wasn't, you know, if you got caught doing a human sacrifice, the first thing you would probably say was, it was a joke, bro. Admit it. That's the first thing you would say. It's the first thing I would say, right? So all I'm just saying. Okay, but we're not out of conspiracy theories. This one isn't actually a conspiracy theory per se. This is just something that people are genuinely worried about, and I'll get into why. But this is the God particle. Okay, I told you we would get to that at the end of the stream. We're not near the end of the stream. We're near the end of the stream, but enough that we're going to read into the God particle, and then we'll probably shut her down. But so what is Higgs boson? It's important. Higgs boson Higgs boson, particle that is the carrier particle or boson of the Higgs field, a field that permeates space and endows all elementary subatomic particles with mass through its interactions with them. The field and the particle, named after Peter Higgs of the University of Edinburgh, one of the physicians who in 1964 first proposed the mechanism, provided a testable hypothesis for the origin of mass in elementary particles. In popular culture, the Higgs boson is often called the God particle, after the title of the Nobel physicist Leon Lederman's The God Particle, If the Universe is the Answer, What is the Question?, written in 1993, which contained the author's assertion that the discovery of the particle is crucial to a final understanding of the structure of matter. So, I don't know if we need to read all into this. Long story short, though, because again, I'm not here to be your particle physics teacher, right? But so far, this particle, and if you were watching the stream earlier, we watched a video where a lady actually talked about this, the reason why it's called the God particle. She doesn't like the name. A lot of people don't like the name because it comes with a connotation that scares other people, that aspect of God particle. We didn't get into it. I actually didn't save I fucked that up. I didn't save one of the web pages I didn't think I did. I was looking for a particular web page when it came to all the hell claims, the portal to hell claims, and there was one missing. I don't think I saved it. But the God particle was an aspect of that, right? People get in their heads. Their sign is 3 6s. They value the god Shiva. They have a fucking video of them sacrificing a young girl. Their name is Cernos, after the Cernanos, or whatever the dude's name is, the Celtic god of the underworld. They do everything they do underground. And on top of all of that, they're finding the God particle. It came with the connotation that a lot of the people who were hell-bent on this theory that they're opening a portal to hell to start the New World Order, a big part of that was that they're looking for the God particle. I mean, to a lot of people who are not so disconcerting, to people who are not so discerning is the word I'm looking for. To people who aren't so discerning, the God particle could sound like something that would give you the power of God. Right? And that isn't necessarily what it does. I mean, it kind of does. The reason why it's called the God particle is because it essentially is what gives subatomic particles mass when it interacts with them. So the Higgs field, a field that permeates space and endows all elementary subatomic particles with mass through its interactions with them, is filled with the field is filled with particles called the Higgs boson that is a particle that is the carrier particle or boson of the Higgs field. So the Higgs field exists either filled with, I believe, Higgs bosons that when they come into contact with subatomic particles, endow them with mass. And the reason why that's a big deal is because mass is what dictates how these subatomic particles interact with each other. Mass is a very important dimension. It's one of those other really crafty, clever words. It is a very important dimension of subatomic particles that dictates what they can actually do, what those atoms are going to turn into, and then what form of matter they're going to take. From what I understand, we'll look into it a little more. Here's the God particle explained. The existence of the Higgs boson completes the standard model of particle physics. We kind of touched on the standard model earlier. It's a big deal. On April 8, 2024, British theoretical physicist Peter Ware Higgs, who first theorized the existence of the Higgs boson, passed away at the age of 94. His passing was announced on April 10. Besides his outstanding contributions to particle physics, Peter was a very special person, an immensely inspiring figure for physicians across the world, a man of rare modesty. I almost said monkeys, a man of rare monkeys. And he seemed like a real good guy. We really liked him. Okay. And the Higgs boson is the fundamental force-carrying particle of the Higgs field, which is responsible for granting other particles their mass. This field was first proposed in the mid-60s by Peter Higgs, for whom the particle is named, and his colleagues. The particle was finally discovered in 2012 by research at the LHC, the most powerful particle accelerator in the world, located at the European Particle Physics Laboratory in CERN in Switzerland. So this, we talked a little bit about all the different things that the LHC is trying to do, and there is some really neat stuff or things that they're hoping to do. But one thing they can cross off the list is they did, in fact, find the God particle. So a lot of the God particle conspiracy theories, a lot of them that are out there centered around the potential finding of the particle, not necessarily what has been happened now that the particle has been found, but the finding of it. What would happen when they found the God particle? Would they, use it to start an alternate dimension? Is this video about the God particle?
Let me give you an analogy. Imagine an infinite field of snow extending throughout all of space. Flat.
Let me rewind this a little bit. Let's see if there's a time. Oh, here we go.
Since 1964.
Let's see what this fella has to say. He looks kind of smart.
Idea proposed by Engler, Braut.
He looks like somebody who's barricaded himself into a small house built into the side of a mountain and just read particle physics books his whole life.
And Higgs, that empty space is like a medium. And as particles travel through this medium, some of them interact with it, some of them don't interact with it. The ones that do interact with this medium, they acquire masses, and the ones that pass through it without interacting, those are massless particles. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine an infinite field of snow extending throughout all of space. Flat, featureless, going in all directions. Maybe the middle of Siberia. Now imagine that you're trying to cross this field of snow.
Sorry.
So maybe you're a skier and you skim across the top. That's like a particle that does not interact with the Higgs field. It doesn't sink into the snow. It goes very fast. That's like a particle with no mass traveling at the speed of light. But maybe you've only got snowshoes. In that case, you sink into the Higgs snow field. You get less speed than the skier, less than the speed of light. That's like a particle with mass because you are connecting, interacting with that Higgs snow field. And then finally, if you've just got boots on, then you sink deeply into the snow. You go very, very slowly, and that's like a particle with a big mass. So think of this Higgs field as being like this universal field of snow. Now, where does the Higgs boson come in? Well, we all know what snow is made of, right? It's made out of snowflakes. In the same way, this universal Higgs snow field is made up out of little quanta. Those quanta are like snowflakes. That's what we call the Higgs boson.
Okay, that's enough of that. Smart guy, good analogy. I totally understand it. He's a very smart guy, probably a really good physics teacher somewhere. But yeah, okay, so that's what the Higgs boson is. So why were people so afraid of it then? Aside from being called the God particle, right? Because like I said, the name God particle kind of has a connotation to it that's like, what exactly is this fucking thing, right? So, which is understandable to some extent. But again, it follows that train of thought that we already talked about. People misunderstanding scientific terms for science fiction terms. People thinking that an alternate dimension means like an alternate reality and vice versa and all other stuff. Same thing. People heard the God particle and a lot of them freaked out about it. But there's another valid reason for this. Stephen Hawking, in fact, fears Higgs boson doomsday, and he's not alone. Stephen Hawking's bet Gordon Kane $100 that physicians would not discover the Higgs boson. After losing that bet when physicians detected the particle in 2012, Hawkins lamented the discovery, saying it made physics less interesting. Now, in the preface to a new collection of essays and lectures called Starmus, this famous theoretical... that was a hell of a word. The famous theoretical physicist is warning that the particle could one day be responsible for the destruction of the known universe. So now we're diving into the reasons why it's not a good thing they discovered it, okay? This isn't, what's going to happen when they discover it? This is, what the fuck do we do now that it's discovered? Okay, Hawkins, and this is all the way back in 2014, by the way. Hawkins is not the only scientist who thinks so. The theory of a Higgs boson doomsday, where a quantum fluctuation creates a vacuum bubble that expands through the space and wipes out the universe, has been around for a while. However, scientists don't think it could happen anytime soon. Most likely, it will take 10 to the 100 years, a 1 followed by 100 zeros. Oh, it will take 10 to the 100 years. Oh, wow. So 10 to 100th power. a 1 followed by 100 zeros for this to happen. So probably you shouldn't sell your house and you should continue to pay your taxes. That's probably good advice. But I first read that, I thought they were saying it would probably take 10 to 100 years. It's like, dude, it can happen in 10 years? That's no, that's a bad thing. Okay. All right, I misread though. This is Fermilab theoretical physicist Joseph Liken has said. On the other hand, it may have already happened, and the bubble might be on its way here now, and you won't know because it's going at the speed of light, so there's not going to be any warning. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Kind of blackpilled us. The Higgs boson is sometimes referred to as the God particle, much to the chagrin of scientists who prefer the official name. Its discovery lends strong support to the standard model of particle physics, which is thought to govern the basic building blocks of matter. The Higgs boson particle is important to the standard model because it signals the existence of the Higgs field, an invisible energy field present throughout the universe that imbues other particles with mass. Since its discovery 2 years ago, the particle has been making waves in the physics community. Now that scientists have measured the particle's mass, they can make many other calculations, including one that seems to point to the end of the universe. Doomsday calculations. The Higgs boson is about 126 billion electron volts, or about 126 times the mass of a proton. This turns out to be the precise mass needed to keep the universe on the brink of instability. But physicians say that the delicate state will eventually collapse and the universe will become unstable. That conclusion involves the Higgs field. The Higgs field emerged at the birth of the universe and has acted as its own source of energy since then, Liken said. Physicians believe the Higgs field may be slowly changing as it tries to find an optimal balance of field strength and the energy required to maintain that strength. Okay. Just like matter can exist as liquid or solid, so the Higgs field, the substance that fills all space-time, could exist in two states. Jean Judice, a theoretical physicist at the CERN Particle Physics Center, where the Higgs boson was discovered, explained, right now the Higgs field is in a minimum potential energy state, like a valley in a field of hills and valleys. The huge amount of energy required to change into another state is like chugging up a hill. If the Higgs field makes it over that energy hill, some physicists think the destruction of the universe is waiting on the other side. But an unlucky quantum fluctuation or a change in energy could trigger a process called quantum tunneling. Instead of having to climb the energy hill, quantum tunneling would make it possible for the Higgs field to tunnel through the hill into the next, even lower energy valley. This quantum fluctuation could happen somewhere out in the empty vacuum of space between galaxies and create an expanding bubble. Worrisome feature. So I'm going to be clear. I don't understand what the fuck they're talking about at all. I know that they're worried that this field is going to fluctuate and that's going to create a bubble, and that's what I got. And the bubble's bad. The bubble's bad. If the bubble touches us, we're fucked. That's what I got so far. The worrisome feature. Here's how much of this do we... Ooh, wow. Jeez Louise. Oh, not that much. Okay. Ooh, I was like, damn, I saw where the cursor was, and I was like, I don't know if we have time for all this, you guys, but we can get through this. Here's how Hawkins describes the Higgs doomsday scenario in his new book. The Higgs potential has the worrisome feature that it might become metastable at energies above 100 billion giga-electron volts. This could mean the universe could undergo catastrophic vacuum decay, with a bubble of the true vacuum expanding at the speed of light. This could happen at any time and we wouldn't see it coming. I still don't know what catastrophic vacuum decay is, but it's probably a bummer. The Higgs field inside that bubble would be stronger and have a lower energy level than its surroundings. And trust me, I'm going to say it definitely is a bummer because this guy said it was a bummer. And this guy knows what a bummer is, right? You know, I stub my toe and I think, wow, that's a bummer. You know, I get sick and I'm like, gosh, I'm having a bad day. This guy has managed to be pretty incredibly positive through a whole lifetime of bad days, right? So if you want to talk to a guy who knows what a bummer is, this guy is it. And he says it's a bummer, so we should probably take it seriously. The Higgs field inside that bubble would be stronger and have a lower energy level than its surroundings. Even if the Higgs field inside the bubble were slightly stronger than it is now, it could shrink atoms, disintegrate atomic nuclei, and leave hydrogen as the only element in the universe. Oh, that is a bummer. That would suck. Using a calculation that involves the currently known mass of the Higgs boson, researchers predict this bubble would contain an ultra-strong Higgs field that would expand at the speed of light through space-time. The expansion would be unstoppable and would wipe out everything in the existing universe. Okay, so that's that. Now, not all doom and gloom. Let's just hear what they have to say about this. Either all of space-time exists on a razor's edge between a stable and unstable universe, or the calculation is wrong. If the calculation is wrong, it must come from a fundamental part of physics that scientists have not yet discovered. Lycan said one possibility is the existence of invisible dark matter that physicians believe make up about 27% of the universe. Discovering how dark matter interacts with the rest of the universe could reveal properties and rules physicists don't know yet. Yeah, I have such a hard time with that word physicist. I always think they're saying physicians. The other side of the idea of supersymmetry. In the standard model, every particle has a partner or its own antiparticle, but supersymmetry is a theory that suggests every particle also has a supersymmetric partner particle. The existence of these other particles would help stabilize the universe. We found the Higgs boson, which is a big deal, but we're still trying to understand what it means, and we're also trying to understand all the other things that could go along with it. This is very much the beginning of the story, and I've shown you some directions that story could go in, but I think there could be surprises that no one has even thought of. So, okay, that is why, a lot of people are just freaked out about the God particle because it's called the God particle, but smarter people are still a little freaked out about the God particle because it could be, the God particle could cause some kind of imbalance, and that would destroy the world. In a nutshell, with a giant bubble. A bubble that makes your atoms shrink. I don't know, something like that, right? Here's just another funny article that I thought was interesting. Has the Large Hadron Collider disproved the existence of ghosts? Not really conspiracy theory, they're just kind of chatting about it. They're talking about what it does. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, wait, how old is this article? 2017, okay. Okay, the physicist in question, Brian Cox, an advanced fellow of particle physics at the University of Manchester and a popular science communicator in Britain, on a recent broadcast at BBC's 4 Radio's The Infinite Monkey Cage, entered around science and the paranormal. Cox has said this to say on the subject. Before we ask the first question, I want to make a statement. We are not here to debate the existence of ghosts because they don't exist. He continued, if we want some sort of pattern that carries information about our living selves to persist, then we must specify precisely what medium carries that pattern and how it interacts with the matter particles out of which our bodies are made. We must, in other words, invent an extension to the standard model of particle physics that has escaped detection at the Large Hadron Collider. That's almost inconceivable at the energy scales typical of the particle interactions in our bodies. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is also on the show, pressed Cox to clarify his statement. If I understand what you just declared, you just asserted that CERN, the European Center for Nuclear Research, disproved the existence of ghosts. Yes, Cox replied. I would say if there is some kind of substance that's driving our bodies, making my arms move and legs move, then it must interact with the particles out of which our bodies are made. And seeing as we've made high-precision measurements of the ways those particles interact, then my assertion is that there can be no such thing as an energy source that's driving our bodies. Interesting. So, kind of a bummer. The Large Hadron Collider, out of all the things that are freaking people out about the Large Hadron Collider, the one thing that pisses me off is that they proved ghosts aren't real. That's a bummer. I choose not to believe it. I'm going to go with that conspiracy. That's staying forever. I will never, ever let these fucking particle physicists tell me about what I know about ghosts, these fuckers. Okay, so that covers all the information we have for this Large Hadron Collider. I'm going to wrap it up with my 2 cents here real quick because we've gone a little bit over and my cutie pie made some awesome fried chicken that I want to go eat some more of. So I'm going to go do that. But before I do that, those are the main conspiracy theories regarding the Large Hadron Collider. As we've kind of talked about, there is more conspiracy theories out there that I didn't have time to really dive into. Even with the limited amount of time that we had, I didn't really get to dive deep into the alternate reality theories. We have a general idea of what some of the proof of that is, the main one being the Mandela effect, the idea that a weasel bit through the cable and caused it all. We have the black holes, which seems to have the most meat on its bones as far as, is it possible for this action of particle colliding particles to create a black hole? Science says yes, it is. Just it's probably not going to happen at the LHC because it can't do it at that high amount of energy. Okay, so but if it did, it would be unprecedented, and we don't know how it would interact. One theory is that it would suck us all away. Stephen Hawking's theory is that no, it would dissipate because it couldn't suck in matter quick enough, so it would just go away super fast. But still, yeah, there is evidence that they do have the ability to make black holes. So that conspiracy looks to be at least partly true. The alternate reality theory, they talk about parallel universes at CERN, But they say that they don't mean what we think they mean when they say parallel universes. They mean something different, which does happen a lot in science fiction, as we went over with the video and in other ways. My little story time is people very easily get science fiction terms mixed up with actual scientific terms. They're two different things. They mean two different things, but people get those meanings misconstrued. And then lastly, are they opening a portal to hell? Well, we do got a lot of odd things surrounding that. We do got some pieces of information that were 100% disproven, such as the wackadoodle video of everybody dancing. Totally disproven. They did a investigation on the sacrifice video, and they said that it was just a joke. But that's what I would say if I was sacrificing somebody and I got caught. I'd say, nah, it's just a fucking joke, bro. This is a frat party. We just do this every time, you know? This is no big deal. It's a regular Saturday. So, I don't know. What do you think about it? That one, it's up in the air a little bit. I think the alternate realities, we'd probably have to look a little bit more into it, but I would say that one's probably no. That's a no. I would say that the portal to hell is a probably no, but maybe. The black hole thing is a little bit more like, ooh, that might actually be a thing. Yeah, as a matter of fact, they can make black holes. We just don't know how the black hole would interact. So it is possible that they could make a black hole and suck us all up into it. We didn't research the earthquakes. We didn't research the time traveler. There was another one that was briefly mentioned. And then the God particle. The God particle, again, is kind of a toss-up. They did discover the God particle, and it hasn't resulted in anything bad happening yet, but Stephen Hawking himself has even said, well, theoretically, it could fuck some shit up. So, I don't know. What do you think? I'll go ahead and leave you with that. In the meantime, to anybody who is watching, because when my stream actually shut down, I actually saw that there was 2 other people who were watching outside of my cutie pie, which is awesome. So those people, I don't think they're watching anymore, but thank you for watching. If you see this, I appreciate you tuning in to watch the show, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you see this show on YouTube, thank you for watching my YouTube channel, and I hope you also enjoyed yourself and learned something new. And yeah, make sure you come check out the Twitch channel. See us live, come in and actually join me and talk with me, chat with me in the chat room while I'm going over this information, and we can have a discussion about it in real time while I'm going over it. That would be awesome. That's kind of the whole point for me doing this on Twitch instead of just doing it on YouTube, right? As I could talk with people while I'm streaming. So I thought that would be a lot of fun. So come join me over on Twitch. I'm here every weeknight at 7 p.m. Oh, and make sure you please give me a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That always means a lot. And tomorrow, if you feel like tuning in, tomorrow is Film Buff Fridays, where I will be going over the 8 elements of... Is that what? No. Tomorrow is going to be Introduction to Film Analysis. So we'll be going over some of the elements of film analysis, comparing it to film theory, which is different. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. So... anyways, please join me for that, 7 p.m. In the meantime, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your night. Bye.